Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Got Betrayed and Joined the White Dragon Empress Part 13. Before we start, please go support AbrahamJosueSalasRoa for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Chapter 51 Team DXD vs Qliphoth. Final Part 1. A few moments before. The battle outside Agrees was still very active and its final phase was very intense. Where the most intense and main combats were between what remains of the members of Qliphoth against DXD. Grafia and Barakiel were fighting against their respective opponent, Euclid and Cacabiel, and it was noticeable that neither of the two combats were easy, and it did not seem that any of them took the advantage over their opponent. The Maid of Lucifuge and the strongest cadre knew that at this moment their opponents matched them in terms of technique and power, and obviously the latter knew it. Euclid with his sword and in one movement created the copies of his armor and they went to attack his sister, who in her fingers created small orbs of demonic energy with whitish rays, and with a single movement they went towards the happy copies. The small orbs of demonic electricity destroyed his targets, but Euclid launched a powerful beam of silver-black demonic energy towards his sister, who upon seeing it raised her spear and in one movement deflected the enemy attack. Euclid smiled when he saw this. There is no doubt that to beat Grafia, he will have to find an opening for her and make a powerful attack against her. And that will not be easy. With a simple movement, Barakiel pushed Cacabiel and then launched several blasts of holy lightning that made Cacabiel retreat, who covered himself from the blasts at the last second with a defensive circle. Even with his defensive circle, Cacabiel went against Barakiel and raised his free hand where there was a sword of light, but Barakiel reacted in time and created a shield made of holy lightning to protect himself and absorb the enemy light for his benefit. And without hesitation, he created an electric explosion with said holy lightning shield. Cacabiel recoiled from it, but the electric explosion affected him somewhat. Seeing that they were at a crossroads where no one surpasses the other, the four opponents knew that there must be a way to defeat their respective opponent. And they must find it. She dies. Damned Nema attacked the dragon deity with her armor-reinforced claws, who covered herself from the attack with her own raised and crossed claws. Despite that, Tiamat was knocked to the side by the blow, but she still launched a blast of chaotic divine energy towards the succubus in the face. The impact affected Nehema's helmet and part of it was destroyed. And even if she wanted to use her forbidden healing magic, she knew that using it would wear her down faster. What could be seen behind that mask was the right side of her face, with her eye emanating great anger. Tiamat raised her aura, and with her wings, she propelled herself strongly towards the succubus in front of her, ready to give another attack. Nema did not waste that and attacked with her claws that, due to the diabolical energy, extended several centimeters long, and these went to the dragon deity. The claws were close to Tiamat before Nehema's macabre smile. What I did not expect was. Tiamat with her right arm, wrapped in aqua green water and reddish particles, stopped the succubus's blow to her astonishment. But it didn't end there, since more of that water in Tiamat's arm extended from her back and she created chains that trapped Nehema's remaining arm, as well as trapping the two extendable dragon heads. With this, the dragon deity took her free hand back, turned it into a fist, and carried the same somewhat bluish-greenish water with reddish particles. It began to form the head of something. An animal. It was a dot. Usadora Hiku. The fierce blow of the dragon hit the chest of the succubus, and it cracked, burned and dissolved at the same time that the head of a dragon formed by the blow roared. The armor burned and dissolved so much to Nehema's horror that she felt a great horrible burning in her body. What kind of water is that Tiamat uses? Even with this, Tiamat carried a sphere of blue fire with reddish details, even enveloping it in her combined divine and chaotic aura. The Suhashinkan, the dragon deity, threw the flaming sphere towards the succubus, who dodged the sphere that was going towards her like a missile or an ultra-fast bullet. The sphere of divine chaotic fire was lost in the distance, impacting a large group of Qliphoth's creatures. But the D-dragon did not stop there. She carried fire in one hand and ice in the other. He combined both elements and created a screen of cold smoke. Nema, with some hand movements and magic, created a strong wind that dissipated the screen of cold smoke, but when he wanted to focus on his opponent, he did not see it. Where? Here I am. Tiamat suddenly appeared behind the succubus, and before she did anything, the dragon deity with her hands grabbed and forcefully tore off the two extendable dragon heads from the back of the succubus. And using those two extendable necks, Tiamat hit Nema with one of these and then hit her with the other, which she charged with her fire, which exploded upon impact, and the succubus's armor was further damaged by the attack. This is going wrong. I must stop her attack. Nema this time, thanks to Ozzy Dahaka's magical knowledge, created several spheres of diabolical energy and dragon slayer aura around her. These spheres began to fly towards the D-dragon, who only began to fly to avoid them, since she sensed the horrible danger of those attacks. That did not surprise her so much. Ozzy Dahaka is even known for learning all the magical murder arts that represent the weakness of each race, and his is no exception. In mid-flight, Tiamat fired blasts of divine chaotic energy or simply deflected them with her fists, although some hit her, damaging her body. Some blood showed at the corner of her lips and on the side of her head, but that didn't stop her from going on the counterattack. This time, inhaling air, the dragon deity launched a huge and powerful bluish flame towards the succubus, who was affected by the power of the flames. They were as hot as if they were hell itself. With a flutter of his now burned wings, Nema put out the fire, but Nema screamed as she felt something on her right shoulder. It was the dragon deity that had dug her extendable claws into her shoulder. Even with this, Tiamat with her other hand created and threw another sphere of somewhat bluish-greenish water with reddish particles. The impact burned and dissolved Nehema's armor even more, who began to scream in agony. That damned liquid, it wasn't normal. But even with that, Tiamat tightened the grip of her claws on Nehema's shoulder, lifted her up, and in one strong movement, threw her to the other side, causing the succubus to fall to the ground abruptly. Nema rolled a little on the ground, and when she stood up and looked up, she saw how a divine chaotic blast was coming against her. But she used instant teleportation magic to dodge the attack and be further away of the impact site, which was very destroyed. If I had received that attack, I would not have counted it. Nema looked up and saw Tiamat, who descended a little to be noticed. The majestic image of her and the 4 dragon wings of hers made her look like a dragon god. "You're finished." Tiamat raised her right hand and charged with power, ready for whatever her opponent did before launching her attack. Nema clicked her tongue at that. It would be best for him to use his illusions while he heals, and suddenly. A strong tremor and a great fearsome aura and presence were present in the environment. And that had caught the full attention of all those on the battlefield. Or when looking for the origin of the great terrifying aura. Everyone's sight ended up focusing on Agrees, whose barrier had dissolved into particles similar to broken glass, and then a huge no. Several very huge and deafening roars, like those of a beast, were heard. They heard all over the battlefield. And upon hearing and feeling that, everyone without exception felt a sensation they had never felt before, but still. They were plagued by absolute fear. It was at that moment that, from Agrees, something very big began to rise from the floating city. 7 long and enormous necks with heads, which roared fiercely and loudly like never before. All the DXD members on the field couldn't believe their eyes. That colossal beast was ridiculously imposing. And Ryudameru, the 3 most beautiful and strongest women of the 3 biblical sides, looked speechlessly at that beast that was present. Even the Baal group and the other crew members on the ship were the same. Where, still trembling with fear, Gabriel created the group communication circle so that everyone could hear it. 666. Tetrahexa. The words of the seraphim were heard loud and clear by all. All the DXD members in the field feared the worst from what was seen and heard by the communicator. But the biggest concern was what happened to Issei, Valerie, Asia and the young man's parents. Nema, Kakabiel and Euclid smiled triumphantly and excitedly at this. Where without hesitation, Euclid snapped his fingers and, in front of Agrees, on the ground, hundreds were created. No. Maybe. Thousands of magic circles with the emblem of Qliphoth. And from these everything began to come out. Thousands of those demonic creatures, others larger and more nefarious, as well as many black-scale males normal size and several gigantic types. Obviously. That incredible but terrifying image was seen by the entire supernatural world. All the gods and other beings could not believe what they saw. Even from their homes, they could feel the aura and power of the Tetrahexa. One that undoubtedly surpassed that of the gods who are at the top of the world top. Azazel, Cerziches, Michael, Odin, Zeus, Izanagi and other gods did not believe what they saw. But, even so, they should not give up. They had to act now. I just hope DXD succeeds hold on long enough. It is a fact that with this, in one way or another, the entire supernatural world will join this war if they want to guarantee the survival of the world. And the floating city of Agrees. Issei, Valerie and Asia with the 3 fathers flew as fast as they could, all in order to get away from that great beast. Where once they reached the edge of the floating city and landed near the edge, they would see in amazement and horror the battle that had begun. The creatures of Qliphoth were now more numerous, as if they were 100,000. Obviously you could see in the distance how a great black dragon was burning and crushing the creatures of Qliphoth mercilessly. And from the aura and essence, the celestial couple realized that it was Crom Cruach that had entered its dragon form, apparently in order to cover more ground and destroy those things faster. Even Tannen was a little noticeable from the great distance. This was crazy. And it can't be. Asia put a hand to her mouth at what she saw. Even the 3 fathers didn't know what to say to what they saw. This seemed something similar to a humans versus monsters movie, but this is without a doubt worse. TCH. Did we fail? Issei clenched her fist at this, and the frustration was evident in her voice. Flippeth, no. Razavum had planned it all, they fell into his game again. He knew them so well that that's why he took advantage of the parents of the celestial couple, all in order to finish them both. And although he failed in that, he still achieved his goal. Awakening 666. No, they were even sure that if they wanted, they could have awakened that beast a long time ago, but they just made them play their game. Valerie. This is the end of the world. Valerie clarified his mother's doubt that she looked scared by it. Still. At least you guys should get out of here. With her words, Issei and Asia understood what she meant. They had already planned something in case they saved the Haidu parents, so. What? What will you do? Goro asked somewhat fearfully. Not for himself, but for what we should do, Otu-san. Fight. Issei said. That against those things and that. Huge being Mickey asked and screamed in horror. There is no other option. Valerie with his hand would create a magic circle on the floor. This will instantly transport you home, where you will be safe. You have to go. No, enough of that. Outraged, Elizabeth would take her daughter from her shoulders. I'm not going to let you take me away from you again. It's for your good, mother. I'm not going to lose you because of this, Valerie shouted and took off his helmet, facing his mother's gaze. Only we and our friends can do something about this. You would only get in the way and distract us. Trembling a little, Valerie grabbed his mother's hands. Mother, please. If you accepted me even though I was half demon since I was a child, I want you to understand why we do this. If we don't do it, no one else will. And there will no longer be a future for the world. There would be no point in escaping. If that beast leaves the underworld, the human world will be doomed, as will the supernatural. There would no longer be a place we could call home if Klepeth triumphs completely. Valerie. Elizabeth looked hurt and helpless. She focused her gaze on the battle down there on the field and then on that great beast that hasn't moved from her spot yet. Reluctantly, she knew what the truth of this was. Please. Promise me that they will succeed and that you will come home with me. I promise. Although he said that, Valerie didn't understand why he said it. Logically, he didn't see so many possibilities of victory, but she felt a good hunch. Son. Mickey and Goro hugged Issei, who hugged back. Good luck, pup. And don't be late home, please. We will do it. Issei affirmed and nodded, and within seconds they separated from the hug. Asia-chan. Mickey hugged the aforementioned, who returned the gesture somewhat embarrassed. Don't hurt yourself, and make sure Ice doesn't do something stupid, okay? I promise, Aka-san. Asia stated as she felt a caress on her head from Goro. With that, the three fathers separated from the young people and would stand on the magic circle on the ground following Valerie's instructions. The transportation circle would shine and the light would surround the three adults. And before they disappeared into the teleportation glow. Good luck and we love you. That was the last thing the three fathers said, who within seconds disappeared into the light of the transportation circle. It's time. Valerie would look at his beloved and the blonde. From here, we fight not only for our lives. But also for the world. Yes. Issei would clench his fist. In fact, I bet the entire supernatural world must have felt the power and aura of that beast, so. We can only wait for help to come. I even think Leviathan Sama must have already informed the Alliance of this. So? We just have to hold on, right? Asia was nervous and even scared, but she was determined to help in the fight. For some reason, she feels that this balance breaker will even allow her to fight. Though she can't be sure of it at all. It's the only thing we have left. Valerie sighed reluctantly while unconsciously putting his hand on her belly. He truly fears the worst. I see that Elizabeth-chan and the other two are no longer there. At that voice, the three would turn around and see how Razavum walked towards them calmly and slowly. I have to assume they were transported to a safe place, right? Oh well, not that I care about that now. Still. Razavum would smile. Please. It seems like you guys will be a bit of an obstacle for me. Oh well, some entertainment before attacking the entire world. What? Is this also part of your plan? Valerie asked sarcastically, but his father's laughter made her look at him seriously. I see that you don't understand it, my daughter. The plan is already made and all that remains is to attack, but a little test never hurts. And you are the perfect guinea pigs. The young people became serious and alert at Razavum's words. Ifufufufu. They couldn't live and learn from all their previous failures, and look where that has taken them. Right up to me, at my mercy and nowhere near completing my ambition. This way I can demonstrate that my idea, my belief, is not wrong. Belief. Why don't you do this just to destroy the world and then continue in the other? The demon's mocking laughter clarified the doubts of Issei and the others. No. There is something else, right? Hahaha. I see you get it, most dangerous Hakuryuite of all. Like my daughter, the most powerful Hakuryuiku in history. Unlike my useless father, I do not seek meaningless destruction. I seek destruction that has or brings a purpose, one that benefits the world. What's more, do you want to know a truth that is impossible to believe? Something that is even more shocking than the secret of the death of the biblical god. The three young people did not know what to say about what they heard. What could be more shocking than that truth that the three biblical sides were hiding for years? Obviously, the answer came to them as if nothing had happened. Razavum began to tell them the original story of the original Valery Lucifer, formerly known as Archangel Uzbal. How before the debut of the biblical religion in the world in the past, the biblical god, Elohim, to end the wars that humanity had among themselves, predicted the destiny of one of his children, Luzbal, who accepted his destiny of being the villain of history and being the evil of the world, all with this in mind. To unite humanity and stop fighting each other. Luzbal fell from heaven after losing her grace and became the first fallen angel never mentioned in any record, since she almost instantly became a demon after descending to the underworld, and from there the Valery Lucifer was born. After that event, Elohim created the first humans of his religion, Adam and Lilith, where Lilith was a failure in having the knowledge of good and evil. Nema was next. And after her came Eve. After 1,000 years and Lucifer creating the demons using Lilith's body through experiments, the demons could already make their debut in the world. Where Christianity had expanded very quickly, covering every mythological pantheon. The demons showed themselves as the enemies and eradicators of humanity that served Elohim and who would be the rulers of the world. Obviously, almost at the same time, the fallen angels appeared, who although they were few, 200 for variety, they were entirely enemies and rarely messed with humans. Apparently, the demons had the destiny not only to fight eternally and to keep humanity united so that they stopped fighting each other, but even one day they had to perish before humanity itself to guarantee them a supposed eternal peace that will only be temporary, since in another 1,000 they would have to repeat that process again. A whole endless cycle where the light overshadowed the darkness, and that was how it had to be for an indefinite time. Although, at least, that was the prediction or future vision of what should really happen. Since, unexpectedly, that cycle and destiny was broken when the other three mass, Leviathan, Beelzebub and Asmodeus, already being fed up and not wanting to accept that cycle and destiny of endless losing fights, made a ruse behind Lucifer's back, thus provoking the fallen and God and his angels, thus unleashing the great biblical war. In this war, Lucifer fought hard and bravely alongside his people, putting the lives of his people as first priority before victory. And as much as he had wanted to stop the war, the damage had already been done. They could only continue. In the end, Lucifer and Elohim fought each other in a very remote place on the battlefield. Nobody knew what happened at that moment, but after a great flash of grayish light with reddish and golden details that went to the sky and cleared it, that was when the war ended. Elohim and Lucifer had killed each other. That's what everyone thought and is believed. Well, the other three mass died before the end of the war. But the most important thing was one thing about Valery Lucifer. He was someone who was kind and valued even those of lower castes, even inspiring them to be better. And although his own people were just a sacrifice too for the good of humanity, he still valued his own people and kingdom until the end. Even Lucifer had a phrase that inspired his grandson: the future belongs to those who have the courage to fight for it. Issei, Valerie, Asia, Drake and Albion couldn't believe what they heard. It was a little or very difficult to believe that that demon, the first of all, had been someone so compassionate and that he was willing to do so much just for the sake of it. Good of the world and of humanity. And just seeing Razavum's expression of passion and admiration was enough for the five to understand that he was serious. So, your plan is? Asia placed her palms together in front of her face, still processing everything she heard. Hahaha. It's what they are thinking, even if they find it hard to believe. Razavum would look at the celestial couple. You two have gained your power after experiencing the pain and despair of this world. And with everything I have seen during these 2,000 years in the world, they have shown me that this world can only evolve after a great disaster, that only the strongest survive, and that only the best live. So that this boring world and rotten and foolish ideas, selfishness and discrimination evolve, there must be chaos and destruction. And may the world be reborn from its ashes. Evolution. Reborn? Are you doing all this so that the world grows? Take it to total destruction so that it can be reborn? How crazy, Drake said. No, Welsh dragon, the true madness is to continue living in a world that is stagnant, one where nothing has happened to impact or change it in the last millennia, after the separation of the natural and supernatural worlds into two separate places. That is the madness. This world should no longer even have the chance to live, but after the destruction and chaos that I have in mind along with the Trahixa, it will have it and it will be seen if it should live. Otherwise. Let him perish, that's what you're trying to say, right? Albion completed what Razavum was going to say, who just smiled pleased. It shows that you're fed up or seriously hate this world, don't you? Razavum looked at the three young people who did not take their eyes off him for any second. This world. It's so pathetic. Not only because of the foolish ideas of humans who continue with their wars, but because of the other supernatural beings and gods who have made everything stagnate. Although now they want to change that, it's too late. The world will take time to advance, and I'm already bored and tired of waiting. Therefore I will create a new world, a better and more capable one. Where you will be the supreme god, huh? Wow, speaking of big dreams. Issei couldn't help but relate this to an anime. You are undoubtedly crazy, but it seems that you have your own way of seeing the world and how to change it. You use the evil dragons as a sacrifice and to have them confront us in the places that we happen to visit, since that was where everything you needed for your plan was. And you even sacrificed the rest of evil dragons in the attack on heaven, which was not necessary, and they only made fun of us. Things that neither you nor the rest they could have done it alone. Not only that, they have created an army, and they already had it long before, but they still decided to wait until they had their best weapon against the gods on their side, so they could start moving. And you have made us play in your palm all the time. TSK. No doubt you have everything planned. Valerie couldn't believe what he heard. And to think that you wanted to start right now and lure us here to get rid of us easier, instead of attacking faction by faction with that thing instantly. Maybe my father would have done that if I hadn't been there, but that would make everything go to waste. Besides, the years don't pass in vain. Razavum took a couple of steps forward and on his neck something would appear. It was a necklace that has the appearance of a black dragon snake with small silver jewels. But I'm more than sure that you don't want to continue with a boring talk that in the end will lead us nowhere. Very true. Issei and Valerie stated, standing guard with their helmets already in place. Do you know? Normally it would be easier if I use 666 and have him kill them with a simple attack. The three young people tensed up at what Razavum said. But an easy victory wouldn't be so much fun without the defeat of powerful opponents under my own hands. So Razavum would notice the necklace on his neck and hanging Eclipse. Balance breaker. Those two words left the three young people speechless, and Lucifer's grandson was surrounded by a great black glow with silver details. And when the glow dissipated, he revealed himself to the demon who was wearing a jet black dragon armor with silver gems and his 12 demon wings were spread. The aura that emanated was dark and disturbing. That aura is. And it can't be. Apophis. What Drake and Albion said left the three young people who were in shock speechless. Ahaha. It is just as you believe, celestial dragons. Razavum would close his hands several times, seeing his armor. It turns out that we discovered that Apophis and Ozzy Dahaka were possible traitors, so we decided not to risk it. And instead of just getting rid of them, we decided to put them to better use. It wasn't easy to break them, but in the end they gave in. You're seeing what would be considered new longinus. And artificials for a change. Artificial longinus. That's crazy. Valerie couldn't believe what he heard and saw, but it was real without a doubt. The real madness of this begins here. With this. Instantly, Razavum began to emanate a rather disturbing and scary dark energy. One that Drake and Albion recognized. It can't be. I am the one who carries the will of the evil dragon of darkness that represents the Eclipse and is the enemy of the Egyptians. Time of our rebirth. I am the one who will dye the world in infinite darkness and drown the ephemeral dreams of the world. We represent the primordial darkness. I will become the evil dragon of the primordial eclipse. We are the eclipse of the world and the one that will engulf the sun. Razavum's armor began to change as he sang. First his armor gained a little more thickness, then silver details began to appear on the armor, as well as white markings with the symbol of Lucifer. The darkness emanating from the armor enveloped the demon's wings and seemed to pull them together, creating a pair of bat wings made of darkness. And finally, the helmet of the armor grew a mouth with sharp teeth. And I will plunge the world into the primordial darkness so that they will drown in agony and despair. Juggernaut Eclipse Drive. The aura of the being of pure darkness in the place made the surroundings tremble. The being in front of the three youths looked like a dragon in human form that was wrapped in a large mass of darkness. And the size of it was almost 2 meters high. Ahahaha, now do you see my new power? Like yours, but many times better. Razavum's voice was gloomy and his dark aura seemed to spread around him. And in his hand the Saint Grail appeared. And the best part. With the Grail at my side, I don't have to worry about energy drain or serious injuries, as the chalice will restore me. DCH. This is serious. Issei clicked his tongue at this, and the two girls trembled slightly. See, I think his power is close to that of Crom Cruach when he was in heaven. Will we have a chance? Although Asia looked scared, she was determined to help in the fight. We won't know until we try. Valerie would look at the brunette. Are you ready, sweetheart? Like never before, my white empress. Issei put himself on guard, ready for anything. But this, the celestial couple began to emanate their powerful auras that turned scarlet and grayish. Me, the one who woke up. I am the CANCELADA who accepts the principles of domination and carries with him the truth of the world. I am the hacker Yuaku who accepts the principles of supremacy and carries with her the demonic light of tomorrow. It is time to show our truth. Let us follow the light of tomorrow. Drake and Albion joined in their respective chant. I will carry the hope and the truth of the unbreakable infinite dreams. I walk the path of supremacy with infinite determination and will as I destroy corrupted dreams. It is time to walk the path of righteousness. It is time to walk the path of the illusory tomorrow. I will become the Scarlet Dragon Emperor. I will become the Silver Dragon Empress. Because we are the CANCELADA who fights for the future and protects it. Because we are the hacker Yuaku who brings illusions and shines like a star of tomorrow. And I am here to guide you all into the future that lies behind the true scarlet dusk. And I will make you follow the perfect path so that you can observe the glorious dawn that is born together with the demonic light. Cardinal Juggernaut Overdrive Empire Juggernaut Overdrive. But those words, an intense scarlet grayish golden glow was present in the place, which upon dissipating, revealed Issei with his scarlet armor with jade gems and golden details, in addition to the jade-colored wings of light. Then Valerie appeared with his silver grayish armor with turquoise gems and golden details, in addition to the turquoise wings of light. Asia, for her part, stayed behind both celestials, deciding to be support from a distance. Okay. Issei would crack his fists. Rock time. But that said, the celestial couple went against Razavum. The final battle to save the world had begun. The battle on the field was already on its final scale, and everyone knew it. That's why they decided to increase the intensity of their attacks to end this once and for all. Roswis, Brynhildr, Athena and Antianira leading the squads of Valkyries and Amazons, along with Fenrir, Gogmagog, Hadi and Skoll, they fought against the army of these creatures in an abysmal way. This time they were going to make sure there were none left. Brynhildr and Antianira fought head-on with their swords, and their mastery was extremely enviable. Each one used her own style along with her magic or semi-divine aura that killed or sent these spawns of the demon flying. Roswis supported the Valkyries in the bombardment from a distance, and when some of these spawns approached them, they cut them with magic swords or kicked them away. The Amazons with bows in their hands launched powerful arrows of semi-divine aura that they created loud explosions when they hit either enemy creatures or the ground, but the explosions still helped wipe out these things. Athena from the tip of her divine spear launched a powerful beam of divine energy that left a great path of destruction as it destroyed every creature of Eclipse that was in its path. Seeing how more of those things came even by air made me the Greek goddess of war and wisdom laughs a little. This was supposed to be a joke, but great lightning bolts and storms from Mount Olympus. Appear and show your power. And make the divine wrath fall on those who want to bring destruction. Ereshinku, Athena raised her spear after the chant, and then multiple artificial grayish clouds appeared on the field. And these clouds began to launch powerful golden rays that impacted the Eclipse creatures, electrocuting them until they burned. And at the same time, strong winds and tornadoes were created, and these combined with lightning, creating electric tornadoes that devastated every enemy creature. Athena only swung her spear at her masterpiece. Being the daughter of Zeus is not for nothing, and it is normal that she has inherited something from her father, even though she was born from the head of Zeus. Gogmagog with his cannons fired multiple and powerful rays without stopping that destroyed the demonic creatures almost instantly, with some barely leaving alive but very injured. Skoll launched a powerful flame from his mouth, incinerating those monsters that turned into ashes. Her fire was almost as hot as the sun, worthy of the wolf that is said to chase the sun goddess in Norse mythology during Ragnarok. Hadi, for her part, launched a powerful and great icy blizzard that froze the demonic creatures to death, turning them into statues of ice, only to then destroy them with concentrated blasts of water that destroyed them upon impact after exploding. Something also very worthy and to be feared for the wolf that chases the Norse god of the moon Mani during Ragnarok. Fenrir had it very easy against these demon spawns, and even if some of those multi-tentacled spawns catch and tie him up, that is nothing against the wolf god Slayer, who with only pure force, breaks free from his captors and fires powerful shots from his mouth. Grayish divine bursts. The explosions caused by the gusts from him were such that the field shook a little. The Nordic and Greek warriors have it easy on her side. They'll be done with her part in no time. In another part of the field, Metatron had already met with Dulio and the rest of the brave saints a long time ago, and right now they are fighting to the end against these spawns of the devil, who were now worse than the plague. The teamwork of the group of angels made a good difference, since their light attacks did not make these demonic creatures agonize. Obviously, it was time to get serious. They are in the final stretch. Balance breaker with a golden glow that dissipated within seconds, Dulio was seen with his 12 golden wings and 4 halos on his head. Speranza Bala Di Sapin. With his arms outstretched, the Joker of the Zenith Tempest created a large number of rainbow bubbles in front of him. And these bubbles trapped a large part of the demonic creatures inside them, only for the appearance of the bubbles to change, and large tornadoes of fire were created inside said bubbles with the trapped creatures. The same thing happened with strong hurricanes in the bubbles that cut the creatures, others froze them to the point that they collapsed, and others electrocuted them. These bubbles are not ordinary, since they are a technique that Dulio created a long time ago, and they are his most lethal weapon when he does not want to affect the outside world by controlling the weather. Obviously, someone didn't want to be left out of this. Balance Breaker Lint activated the world balance breaking power of his Incinerate anthem. The purple flames increased like never before and began to coalesce into something very large next to the artificial girl. The large purple fire entity with gold details next to the girl had two large angel wings, lovely heavenly angels. Saying that, the great angel of purple golden fire began to burn every demonic creature within its range to ashes. Obviously Lint did not leave everything to his balance breaker entity. The girl with true Excalibur created a Gatling gun in her hands and the multiple barrels of it rotated randomly. Only two within seconds fire an endless rain of holy blasts and purple fire. Eat this and go to hell. Devil spawn. Lint seemed to laugh maniacally as she enjoyed the carnage. It's incredible that even with her attitude, her wings haven't blinked at any time. What the hell is this girl about? Oh well. Lint would stop shooting her with the Gatling for a moment and then turn it into something that attached itself to her body and created several huge cannons, which fired something like missiles that when hitting the enemies, created powerful explosions of holy aura and purple fire that burned everything. Lint only laughed at her work and then recreated the Gatling in her hands and returned to shoot with this one. The other brave saints and Metatron did not know what to say about it. It seems that the artificial girl is quite a maniac, but the surprising thing is that she has not fallen, and that took away all the admiration. Off everyone, let's attack too, we can't let our jokers wear out. Griselda's scream brought everyone back to reality. Hi, all the brave saints and the seraphim stated. Griselda invoked her angel wings, which were now 6. And with her light that was denser than before, she created her bow and launched brilliant arrows of light that impacted her companions, causing their auras to increase several times. Griselda had the power to repower any angel with her arrows, although the effect is only temporary, but it will do. Metatron flapped his 12 wings strongly, causing a bunch of feathers to come off, and these angelic feathers began to move and fly around the place, launching these multiple and powerful rays of light that seemed to burn and corrode the earth itself. Seraphim Metatron, also known as the Angel of Extinction, has the densest light of all the angels, and his light is capable of burning and corroding the earth itself. And his wing feathers were good long-range triggers that he can control without problems. Ethelman Kiatora launched powerful blasts and spears of light combined, and their combined attacks created explosions that eradicated the demonic creatures. Nero accumulated a lot of holy flame in his fists and launched 2 powerful bursts of these that mercilessly devastated every creature in their path, and Marana launched 2 gigantic spears of very dense light that exploded upon impact with their enemies, devastating many. In minutes, the angels will finish their part and be ready for anything. In another part of the field, Cao Cao and the hero faction were more serious against these demon spawns that are more numerous and savage. Alright, time to get serious. Balance Breaker. Jean and Heracles activated their powers that break the balance of the world itself. The great dragon made of holy swords appeared next to the blonde, while 2 large missiles appeared in the arms of the big man. Jean mounted her dragon, and it gave a ferocious roar, beginning to move and tear apart those demonic spawns, as the descendant of Joan of Arc with her sword summoned multiple sacred elemental swords from the ground, electrocuting, burning or freezing each of those spawns. Heracles launched the 2 missiles into his fist, and they created 2 loud explosions that eliminated a large group of those things. He obviously decided to wait to summon more missiles, and began to create fierce explosions with his fists, destroying or sending said creatures flying. Siegfried with Balming created powerful tornadoes that engulfed and cut those creatures, and with Dane's Leaf, he created multiple ice blades from the ground, just like freezing those things. While with Graham, Nothing and Turfing, created 3 gigantic pillars of demonic energy that shot out, destroying every enemy in their paths. Aorg, with the mist of his lost dimension, engulfed a large 100 of those demon spawn until he made them disappear from the battlefield. He obviously also attacked with all the types of magic he knew, and those creatures gave in to his attacks. Cao Cao, without Balance Breaker, launched powerful divine rays from the tip of the true Longinus and eliminated a good number of those things. And when said creatures seemed to surround him to attack him from all directions, Cao Cao did not even worry, and he stuck the tip of the spear into the ground, creating a large and powerful pillar of divine energy that eliminated enemies instantly and corroded the earth. The hero faction had everything under control on his side, and in a matter of nothing they will finish their work. In another part of the field, Dog's team managed to reunite with the rest of Valerie's team. And both united teams began to battle and destroy Eclipse creatures, giving their best. Arthur, Biku, and Elaine slashed and slit the throats of every creature that came close to them and also launched their own powerful long-range attacks that destroyed the ground and obliterated those things. LeFay and Kuroka covered their backs along with Sha and Zhu at his side. The four of them defended themselves very well, and their magical attacks and senjutsu respectively gave a great combination that eliminated these monsters. Natsume fired magical blasts at those creatures with sacred gear type pistols given by Grigori, and next to her was her autonomous sacred gear, which has the shape of a falcon, and she calls it Griffin. And this one carries the spirit of Kyungpi, the demon of cunning who can even manipulate the wind. Obviously said autonomous sacred gear was in its true form, and its appearance was that it has the upper body of a hawk and the lower body of a lion, much like a real griffin. And Griffin with the flapping wings of its wings, launched powerful gusts and blades of wind that cut the demonic creatures. Just like he created mini tornadoes that combined to create a larger one and destroy more of those things. Aoki hit those creatures with his fists that had light metallic gloves made of the metal of the sacred gears, given by Grigori. And next to her was her autonomous sacred gear called Byakusa, which was the white cat that was on her shoulder all the time and carries the spirit of Teo, the demon of ignorance. And said autonomous sacred gear was in its true form, which was that of a huge tiger with saber teeth and several tails, which also launched powerful electric blasts at the enemies. Lavinia bombarded the demonic creatures with her magic and they gave way easily. And next to the blonde was a huge ice doll about 3 meters high in the shape of a woman with a dress and 4 thin arms. Her face has no nose or mouth and she has 6 eyes on the left side of her face, while the right side of her face is studded with something resembling the thorns of a rose. Said ice entity is the girl's Longinus, Absolute Demise. Also known as the Eternal Ice Princess. Absolute Demise in an autonomous Longinus, similar to the Regulus Nemia and Canis Lycaon, only it has no self-consciousness and obeys the orders of its wearer. The Absolute Demise doll would freeze the ground and the ice spread too far, freezing only to the enemies and not affecting Lavinia's friends. It is said that Absolute Demise can even freeze a small country completely and keep it frozen for as long as the user wants. There is even a certain possibility that it could affect large countries and somewhat away from the rest. There was Tobio who fought with 2 short scythes in his hands and easily cut those creatures to death, and Jin, the Canis Lycaon, made fierce lashes with his claws and with his jaws, caught of the creatures and throws the corpse covered in dark aura towards the rest of those things, creating a slight powerful explosion. There. I think I better get serious. Tobio cuts to another one of those things as Jin stands next to her. Are you ready, buddy? Jin wagged his tail in affirmation and then Tobio began a quiet deep curse chant. I sing to murder 1,000 mortals. As he sang, darkness, shadows, dark mist, and all kinds of darkness in the world began to gather and envelop Tobio in bright darkness. I praise the murderer of the cycle of omens. Tobio's limbs slowly sank into darkness and transformed into something abnormal. My name has spread throughout the infernal abyss, and I will become the false god of night and midnight of the polar light. Jin, the black dog, was also enveloped by darkness. Death, you will become my dark demonic sword that cuts everything. Tobio's body was completely enveloped in darkness and his physical form began to change. His head and face now resembled that of a dog. The darkness continued to integrate into his body. His legs became those of a dog and a tail appeared on its lower back. Tobio then opened his now jaws and darkness emanated from them. And with more darkness around them, a large number of dogs with shiny black fur appeared next to Tobio. They become something false, the creator of the paranormal. Ooh. The wolves of darkness howled anguishedly and piercingly, and it shook the body and mind of all of his companions. Turning into what would be a humanoid dog made of darkness, Tobio wielded his scythe, which was longer and sharper, reaching up to his feet. His shape is identical to that of Death who goes in search of the souls of living beings, while the adult dogs of darkness seemed like apostles of hell. With that, the darkness coming out of Tobio began to spread across the field to many of the demonic creatures. And within seconds, multiple blades emerged from the darkness on the ground, quickly stabbing and killing the Klepeth creatures. Much of the field where they were was covered in darkness on the ground, and from it came dark, cursed blades that killed enemies almost instantly. When Tobio gently swung his scythe, space seemed to have been cut in half, and hundreds or thousands of the demonic creatures in the distance like black scale males were cut in half. This is IQ's Tobio's balance breaker, Night Heavenly / Dog, also known as the Mad Black Dog of the glowing night sky. Interestingly, this balance breaker requires a chant to activate, and similar cases can occur with other sacred gears. Although, since his childhood, Tobio was born with the ability to use his balance breaker even as a child, but his grandmother, Ikusa Jiha, sealed his longinus to allow Tobio to have a normal life. And some time after his grandmother's death, Tobio began to master the balance breaker little by little. Obviously Tobio is missing one more phase, one that will make him a true threat against the gods. But anyway. Being very serious, the members of Valerie and Dog's team will finish off their enemies in minutes. In their parts of the battlefield. Mssiah with his innovate clear created his own creatures within his small world, and using Tilo's karma, he made his creatures almost instantly kill off Eclipse's creatures. Obviously wanting to do something even more on his own, Mssiah shot blasts of white and black magic from special magic guns. Just because he is the possessor of two longinus doesn't mean he has to use them all the time, although Tilo's karma helped his shots almost instantly kill the demonic creatures. Kruich in his form as a gigantic dragon, more than 10 meters high, crushed and burned the spawn of the demon with his flames. He will end the part of him in a matter of nothing. Hanan, Sylvia, her children and the other dragons were now fighting savagely against the demonic creatures and at the same time fighting to stay alive. Sylvia and several ice dragons turned those spawn into statues of ice, and Tannin's wife at the same time instantly, he created huge rocks wrapped in draconian aura that crushed said frozen statues to death. Tannin and Bova released their powerful combined flames that turned their enemies to ashes. Rafi and Barakiel were still fighting hard against Euclid and Kakabiel respectively. The Lucifuge brothers fought by clashing their weapons and using more technique than power. What's more, it is seen that both try to find an opening to defeat their opponent, but neither manages to make an accurate impact in the moments when there seems to be an opportunity. Because they are covering each other very well. The fight between Grigori's two cadres was something else. More than technique, it was speed and power. Both tried to surpass the other with techniques of great power and speed, but the ingenuity of both came to the fore when one seems to have the advantage. In another part of the field. Riaz, Sona and the rest were trying to get everything under control in their part of the field, but now it seems like a difficult thing to do since those damn demonic creatures and black scale males are coming in droves. Tsubaki fired demonic and elemental bullets from the special guns given by Grigori, while Kiba with his sword blacksmith and his dragon knights covered her and cut down those spawns and living armor. The Knight Grimory breathed a little due to some scratches he had, but a blast of water from Sona adhered to his wounds and they closed, a gesture that the blonde appreciated. Sona, thanks to her magical training with Valerie, discovered that she could use water to heal and close the wounds of others and her own by controlling the trillions of cells in the body. That's not easy and requires a lot of concentration and control, but since Sona's talent is water, he has it well controlled. All this while Sikvera was next to the Citri and launched strong cutting winds combined with demonic energy, mercilessly cutting down those monsters. Behind them, Irina was seen helping to keep some demonic birds that were going towards her with her rings and arrows of light, while Zenobia from the ground launched sacred cutting waves to prevent those things from approaching. The Bluenet curses her lack of experience in aerial combat. She can fly with her wings just like Kiba, but both knights had neither the training nor the experience to fight in the air, much less move at high speed in the air. On the ground they are faster and freer of everything. The Keno in support with Razor and Riaz protected primary attackers and tanks from a distance because they can use their spells variably, and that helps. More so if these demon spawns get too close to them. Razor was in charge of hitting, kicking and burning any creature that approached them, and his good style was evident. Training with Saraerg in hand-to-hand combat paid off. All this while Kaneko was in front of them, and with her white Kasha flame she hit and burned said creatures to ashes. Somewhat far away but at the same time close to the rest, Saji, Benalana and Alevin fought against several of those monsters that seemed larger and more grotesque, along with several black-scale males. The three managed to have everything at bay and under control, due to their ways of fighting, although Venalana made a duo with Alevin, since the strongest Bale woman was not at all in condition to fight several enemies alone. Saji extended his tentacles wrapped in black aura, and they passed through many of those demonic creatures, until burning them with his black flames and turning them into ashes. Obviously the pawn Citri took advantage of absorbing the energy of those things and, using a better method of energy transfer, thanks to her training with Issei, launched purple blasts that restored the magical energy of the magic users. Saji absorbs a lot of energy as he keeps killing these things, so he has a lot to spare, and that helps him stay in the balance breaker longer without getting tired. While in the air, Tiamat and Nema continued their fierce colossal and celestial battle. The succubus had taken advantage of the shock of the Trahexa awakening and healed herself with her forbidden healing magic. But even so, she is now more limited to not healing due to magical attrition in said magic. Even before they resumed the fight and upon seeing the large enemy army, Tiamat, thanks to her memories of her past life, made a magical summoning ritual where she summoned the 11 creatures who, according to mythology, helped her try to avenge Issei in the past. Creating and summoning these creatures did not cost him that much power, and these creatures are as strong as high-ranking gods, so he can leave the field to them without a problem and concentrate on Nema. But even with everyone in their respective battles, They all felt that once they finished these things, they must meet with Issei, Valerie and Asia, no matter what. Meanwhile, the battle with Razavam and the celestial couple along with the Twilight Holy Maiden had already begun. Issei and Valerie, in their final armors, took out their swords and went against Dark Lucifer. When Valerie went at him with her weapon, Razavam only raised her hand and blocked her daughter's slash, with a circle of combined darkness and light that cushioned the impact and seemed to devour Valerie's demonic light before her. Surprise of her how. Issei didn't care about that, he surrounded the Dark Lucifer and then launched a dragon shot with black aura unceremoniously while Valerie stepped back. But Razavam repeated the same process, raised his hand and created a circle of light and darkness combined. It was so bright and dark that dark light. The CANCELADA's shot was consumed by the circle of dark light only for seconds after the young man's shot left said circle and went against his person, and the CANCELADA dodged his own attack returned. But that done, Razavam was confident and with good reason. His now dark light was better and even more powerful than his demonic light. The sacred and the demonic are like branches or sub-parts of light and darkness, being inferior to the latter two. True light and true darkness combined create a superior force that not even the holy demonic can compare to. Issei and Valerie prepared for another attack from Razavam. They were blasts of fire, lightning and wind combined with light and darkness respectively. The celestial couple began to dodge these blasts by jumping or letting their instincts warn them of danger. Needless to say, the movements of the celestial couple were to avoid fatal damage rather than to dodge it completely. This can be seen in the wounds they are receiving and which will undoubtedly not be easy to completely block. Although Issei wasn't that worried about taking continuous damage, his healing factor helped him a lot, but Valerie wasn't counting on that. How lucky they have Asia, who will be in charge of Hakuryuku. They both launched blasts towards Razavam, who deflected them with his hands to the surprise of both. It is noted that he reached or slightly exceeded the celestial dragon level. But that did not stop them. Issei and Valerie began to attack the Dark Lucifer with his weapons, and he returned the blows with his blasts of dark light that became sharp weapons that blocked the attacks of both young men. The celestial couple made a coordinated movement to open themselves in Razavam's defense. They were both rivals and a loving couple, so they knew how to work as a team, and that was something rare among the celestial dragons. With the help of Issei, Valerie managed to approach his father to make a thrust with his sword, but the surprise came when he saw that he was no longer there. It seemed that Razavam disappeared into the shadows and his senjutsu and survival instinct gave him the signal, and her body reacted alone to the danger, managing to save her from the attack that almost decapitated her. Razavam was there with Kitsueki thorn in hand and wrapped in dark light and almost managed to hit the Hakuryuku, who felt that the armor on her neck suffered a cut. How close. Issei attacked, taking advantage of the Dark Lucifer's carelessness, but he disappeared from his range of vision from the shadows, and the same thing happened, only that the CANCELADA reacted better to the warning of his instincts and blocked the attack with his energy claws, now black. Obviously Razavam was a little surprised, but he smiled. That smile grew bigger as he felt his daughter launch an attack with her demonic light. He chose to create a current of air to keep them both away using its wind magic repowered with darkness. The impact made both young men fall to the ground very stunned since they really did not expect that and that without a doubt Razavam had new abilities and powers. And very dangerous ones. Issei stood up first and from the gems on her armor, he created red wyverns that turned into reddish blades. Which attacked Dark Lucifer, who launched a great mass of darkness to catch those blades, but penetrate yourself. The ability that can pierce any defense was present, and those blades were wrapped in a red-black fire and holy aura of Ascalon. They managed to break through and dissipate the mass of darkness. Razavam, upon seeing this, only frowned and, quickly, created a very dark black liquid in his hand. Primordial water. That dark liquid became a large mass of black water, which trapped and completely dissolved the CANCELADA's blades, to the astonishment of him and the girls. Greg and Albion, through their thoughts, sent information about the abilities of Apophis, who apart from using and controlling the darkness, can create black water that is extremely deadly and is capable of dissolving anything it comes into contact with. Okay, that's serious. Valerie opted for his own attempt, charged demonic light and blue rays into several spheres and launched them towards Razavam and then left them static in the air. After a few seconds, he sent all the spheres towards Dark Lucifer, who began to dodge the spheres as if he knew what to do. That was not possible. But thanks to his good eye, Valerie noticed something that others did not. Razavam was using shadows and a current of wind combined with darkness to avoid the spheres, since he felt the direction in which they came and the change in strength in the environment. Valerie clicked his tongue at that. It is noticeable that his father is using Apophis's abilities very well, and that was worrying. However, suddenly and without anyone expecting it, sudden bright dark bonds of sacred and demonic energy combined, they caught Razavam's limbs. But who? Attack, now Asia's scream made them notice that she was the one holding Dark Lucifer with her bonds. And the blonde to keep him in place created several squares with the mark of the magic circle, and said squares came together and enclosed Razavum in a kind of cube. I don't think he can hold him for long. Issei and Valerie did not hesitate, they had to take advantage of the opportunity that Asia gave them. They both launched the attack, with the purpose of dealing a good blow to Dark Lucifer. Razavum was not willing to take his blows, so releasing his dark light around him, he got rid of the prison cube around him, but a sudden burst of green light appeared in front of his face and blinded him with a flash. Greenish. Asia smiled at that, and Issei and Valerie took advantage of it, raised their fists and penetrate. Valerie was the first to hit her, right in the chest of her father. Not before. Divide, 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 divide. She divided her power as she could, and her blow cracked Razavum's armor. The girl just stepped aside and gave a free pass to Issei, who boost, 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 burst. Penetrate yourself. She charged Scarlet Jade Jet Aura along with her and Tauki's fire. And the blow that hit right in the place that Valerie hit shook Razavum to the core and broke the armor in that area. The Dark Lucifer was sent flying until it crashed into a nearby building and it fell on top of it. The three young men sighed in relief when they saw that they managed to land some good blows on him. How good. But they didn't have time to relax. Razavum would emerge from the place where he was crashed hard, with his armor restored and not seeming affected by the above. How was it possible? Nothing bad. I admit that I underestimated them, and I'm surprised that brat can do anything useful besides stand by and watch. That makes it entertaining, so. Razavum would create many spheres of dark light around him. Let's raise the intensity. Issei and Valerie found themselves in the need to move to avoid the blasts of dark light that were coming towards them. With each movement they tried to get closer using their increased speeds, but it was impossible due to the large amount of dark light that Razavum created and launched, and what's more. Something told them that getting close was very dangerous for them. Obviously Asia was going to be another target, but Dark Lucifer couldn't focus on her. She must have hidden and can't waste her time on that brat that he can't even attack. With one more movement, Razavum, thanks to the darkness and shadows in the surroundings, aimed his bursts of dark light at only one side, which was precisely where the celestial couple were now. Seeing that moving to dodge was absurd, they chose to defend themselves. Issei and Valerie created a strong magical barrier that they repowered with the transfer. The barrier received and withstood the force of the attacks as much as it could, although it was destroyed in the end served its purpose of saving them from further harm. Despite falling to the ground, the celestial couple was still able to fight, and that was enough for them. I see that you know how to work together. Well, that will make everything more exciting for me. Razavum took flight higher, and the celestial couple were on guard not knowing what was coming. Come on, show me that my belief is correct. That chaos and destruction generate the desired evolution. TCH. I hate that I talk too much. Issei prepared his energy claws that were scarlet jet in color ready to continue. That's not even a question. Valerie channeled demonic light and lightning into his hands to be able to generate greater damage. Come on. The celestial couple went to continue their fight, a fight that would undoubtedly become increasingly difficult. Without knowing that the true final phase of this battle is about to begin, and this will begin the real war. Chapter 52 Team DXD vs Klepeth. Final Part 2. I hope they are okay. Mickey continued looking out the window towards the sky in a worried manner. Several minutes ago they returned to the Haidou residence through Valerie's transportation circle, where the three parents ended up in Issei's room, which was recognized by his parents, and they were received by Office, who was in said room along with Lilith, who was on the bed in the room, resting. Let us have faith. Elizabeth was sitting in a chair with her hands clasped in her lap. She trusted my daughter. I know they will be okay. I'm still surprised that you are Valerie Chan's mother, but you definitely look like her. Guru smiled half-sidedly while he was sitting near the bed and caressing Lilith every chance he could. When we asked her about her parents, she evaded the questions, although, from her expressions, we assumed that something must have happened to her in her life. Mickey continued what her husband said. And it turns out that it was all this. It's not easy the first time when you find out about this. Elizabeth sighed reluctantly, as if indicating that she was used to it. But then she gets used to it. Even so, I feel that because of this lie. We lost family time even with the financial improvement and so on. Mickey had a somewhat complicated and dejected expression. Maybe her son just wanted to protect them from getting involved in this or find the right moment to tell them. Elizabeth made an attempt to make both Haidu parents not believe that her own son was pushing them away. Although I can't be sure about it, but she feels that way. I guess. Goro would sigh reluctantly. Let's just pray that they will return safely. Father Haidu would look out the window, seeing that the sky was cloudy, grayish, and the sunlight was barely noticeable in the grayish clouds that seemed to almost indicate a storm. Although you could notice certain parts were clear and you could barely see the blue sky behind the clouds. And it was already like 7 in the morning. But for some reason, the three fathers felt as if that cloudy sky was a sign. One that indicated that it was the climax of that battle in which their children are fighting for their lives. They felt as if the sky was telling them that if it becomes cloudier and darker, it means that the young people lost. But it also said that if they won, then the sky would clear and the sunlight would shine. What a strange feeling, but that's how they felt. So, Elizabeth thought that it was better to leave the previous topic aside for the moment and move on to something else to kill time. Since just waiting makes them feel like they're waiting an eternity. As I see that you know and get along with my daughter, just like your son, could you tell me what happened to her? Although she asked that, Elizabeth knew part of what Valerie did in recent years after that night in which both of them they escaped, thanks to Razavem telling him what he could know about her and more or less what she had done. Mickey and Goro looked at each other for a moment and then smiled. They better take advantage of this, since today is possibly their last day alive. Office, for his part, continued looking outside through the window and closed his eyes from time to sense that he was passing through the underworld. And internally wishing his family luck in that battle. The final phase of the battle between DXD against Klepeth was of great intensity, the closest thing to a war. DXD were outnumbered, but they made up for it with the quality of their side, and more because everyone sensed that this was in the end, there was no longer any need to hold back. Valery Lucifer's battle against the celestial couple and the Twilight Holy Maiden continued, where the combatants now descended from agrees and fought on the ground, far away from where the others fought. Issei could attack in a row without worrying so much about wasting energy. His power and energy were semi-unlimited as Office confirmed. He could fight for hours and still have enough energy, but he still shouldn't trust himself, he is still not like her. Well, Valerie only used the power of the boosted gear when she saw it necessary, when attacking. And Asia was in charge of supporting the hacker Yuiku with her enhanced magic. Seriously, Issei and Valerie tried to decipher the movements of Razavem, who had raised a transparent dome barrier that he used in conjunction with his darkness and wind to predict the sudden attacks of both dragons, and they barely took him by surprise. Issei spun in the air after dodging a burst of wind and lightning, combined with darkness from Razavem, and then launched a burst of dragon shots with a jet aura towards Dark Lucifer, who blocked them without any problem using his dark light. That was taken advantage of by Valerie to attack with his demonic light and blue rays, an attack that immediately made the Dark Lucifer move because, although it is resistant, it is not indestructible and does not want severe damage, although he sees it as unlikely, but it didn't matter. Immediately, the celestial couple went on the attack using everything they had to even hurt Dark Lucifer, but he dodged or blocked them and immediately hit them to get them away from him. The battle was not easy, but it was not easy either. Difficult. It was as if Razavem had made time. Issei and Valerie know that he could have attacked them with greater power and thus managed to defeat them, but it was not like that. He was playing with them. Both of them, upon realizing that, stopped playing games. To hell if he is making time for something else. They must attack and manage to hit him. The plan they have is to achieve an opening, one that will change the pace of the battle in their favor. Of course, how things are going, they don't see it as close. After blocking the impact of Dark Lucifer towards them using a barrier repowered by the transfer, they both saw themselves on the ground. With damaged armor, and that was saying a lot. They need an accurate hit to achieve victory. Summoning the wyverns, red and white, Issei charged the Holy Dragon Slayer aura of Ascalon and together with the wyverns, fired several precise shots at Dark Lucifer. The scarlet jet blasts with a golden aura passed near Razavem, who believed that the chestnut had missed, but he did not see that the blast stopped behind and exploded near him, managing to generate damage that was not severe, but admirable, because he did not notice it. I hope, but I still affected Dark Lucifer for the Holy Essence and Dragon Slayer in those attacks. Valerie took advantage of that and made several boosts that he transferred to improve his speed in order to go towards Razavem and with great speed, cut him in the face, using his sword charged in demonic light, seriously cracking Razavem's helmet who felt the cut on his cheek. After that, Valerie fired several blasts of demonic light with the essence of the Dragon Slayer magic that he learned thanks to Kuroka, at the same time that Issei fired more blasts in conjunction with his wyverns. And to top it off, Asia with her bonds of sacred demonic energy caught Dark Lucifer off guard, hoping that he would not move and be affected by the attacks. That act caused Razavem to expel his light dark power and stop the blasts that were coming towards him. Immediately, Razavim charged dark light along with some primordial water and then launched an attack towards the CANCELADA, who received a single hit in the stomach that sent him flying into one of the rock buildings. After that, Razavim launched an icy blast combined with darkness towards the CANCELADA, who created a shield using her demonic light and fire, only to notice that Razavim was next to her. This managed to deliver an accurate blow charged in dark light to the girl, who fell to the ground due to the force of the impact. Issei left the place where he was crashed as he felt the great pain in his abdomen fade away. That black water is indeed deadly, since it managed to dissolve the armor almost instantly and cause fierce damage. He had to thank the power of Office and Great Red for still being alive after that. But Valerie, things are somewhat the same. The damage was severe, and more so because of that new light from his father. The girl stood up and noticed that Razavim took off his helmet while wiping his face. It seems that his cut made him get serious. Razavim knew that those two are a danger. He had seen the battles in the two previous incidents, thanks to his special tricks, and one thing became clear to him: the more those two fight, the more opportunities it gives them to improve and defeat him. The better it gives them even more severe damage. Razavim expelled his aura of dark light and power, a power beyond what had been seen to date. The power of Dark Lucifer made the place where they were trembling. That was it. Be careful, it Issei's warning. The celestial couple took cover because Dark Lucifer was going to attack more seriously. Even with a barrier boosted by the transfer for each one. Both suffered a lot of damage due to the force of Razavim's attack, who combined strength, speed and fierceness in his attacks to make both celestial dragons fall with several wounds in their armor. Damaged. That did hurt. That flurry of punches, kicks and sudden bursts. They barely avoided severe damage thanks to his resistance and instincts, but Issei because of his healing factor and semi-limitless energy. Seeing that, Asia wanted to help them both. She launched several holy demonic blasts, and Issei on his shoulder launched blue lightning that combined with the blonde's attacks. But Razavim repelled said attacks with a shield of dark light that absorbed them and returned against the girl, who took flight with her two different pairs of wings and took distance. Asia did not have attacks that are a real threat, and the Dark Lucifer knew it. Although he admits that the Mssiah has improved a lot from one moment to the next, she is still not a threat. He at most rates her as an upper middle or upper low class demon in destructive power, but her true strength is in her defense and her ridiculous support and healing magic. Issei and Valerie stopped as best they could. They had to continue, and here it comes again. Right at that moment, several swords, arrows of light, lightning combined with light, red-black blasts, flaming blasts and other demonic ones. They went towards Razavim, who blocked them with a dome of dark light around him. He saw the attacks and Holy's demonic swords, Hakai no Chikara and holy lightnings, were what he could identify and right above him came a blue-haired girl, who hit his dome with a great sword that emanated combined holy and demonic power. And said attack managed to dissipate the light dark dome due to the distraction of Dark Lucifer, who received an almost severe cut from that sword on his abdomen, and that cracked his armor. Razavim saw that more pestilences had arrived in front of him, those brats heirs of Gremory and Citri, along with that of Aegers and the Phoenix, in addition to the servants of the first, the two of the second and the queen of the third. Not to mention the strongest Baal woman, that brat reincarnated as Angel and Emperor Belial. Biba.Saji. Girls. Issei was surprised to see everyone in the place, especially the Emperor after focusing on him. Friends Asia was happy to see everyone, and well, it's good that we arrived on time and wow, is that your Asia-chan? Arena was shocked and almost speechless when she saw the change in her blonde, and the others looked almost the same when they noticed her. But what happened? Then we have something else pending at the moment, Asia exclaimed. Exactly. Razavim carried dark light in his hand, ready to attack, but he felt more presences approaching. Dark Lucifer dodged a golden divine blast, followed by a purple flare, a large freezing blast, a crescent-shaped slash made of darkness, another divine blast, tornadoes with fire and holy energy, arms of water with rocks. A great burst of combined white and black magic, and finally another flare. See the hero faction, the brave saints and the seraph, the other members of Valerie's team, /dog, the Valkyries and Amazons, along with the Greek goddess, the three great wolves and the golem, followed by the young fictionalist, the evil dragon and the dragon king, along with his wife, children and other dragons. It was a surprise without a doubt for Issei and Valerie, and a joy for Asia. Well, it seems that he and that beast are the final obstacle. Even with his distorted and gloomy voice, everyone was able to identify that Tobio was that dog humanoid made of darkness. The important thing is that we arrived on time. Athena sighed a little after so much battle, but she could continue. She still hadn't completely untied herself. It seems that here the good begins. Crom Cruich clenched his fists with emotion and being back in his human form. Hey Ku. Damn dragon. With that sudden scream. Nema could be seen arriving at the scene, with her armor damaged and without her helmet. And the succubus would get next to the dark Lucifer at high speed. They are more persistent than we thought. What's wrong, succubus? Have you had enough? The arrival of the dragon deity surprised many, since they could not recognize her, and she was accompanied by 11 children, 3 fearsome horned snakes, a dragon serpent, a hairy humanoid beast, a lion demon, a lion with a humanoid body, a big scorpion, a creature that looked like either a deformed dragon or an ogre, a fish with a humanoid body that looked like a merman or mermaid, and finally a bullman or a minotaur. And each creature emanated a great aura. Tiamat. Thanks to her senjutsu, Issei was able to confirm that it was her. Surprising everyone else. But what happened to you? A lot of things happened. Anada. Tiamat raised her hand in greeting and was internally happy that her loved one was fine. What a welcoming committee we have here, haha. What you say? On the other side of the dark Lucifer they appeared at great speed, Euclid and Cacabiel, who showed his faces. And many were surprised to see the cadre that should have been frozen in Cocytus. Hey Cacabiel. Riaz was almost speechless upon seeing him, as was Sona and her entourage. He seemed crazy. Hello, Riaz Gremory and Sona Citri, how long? Cacabiel greeted them in a mocking tone, and… Oh. I see that you have changed a lot, Securuate. You're no longer that weakling brat from before. He could barely punch me in the face. Ha. Ha. Very funny. Issei rolled his eyes to the side at the traitor cadre's bad joker greeting. Euclid, Cacabiel. To those screams, Graphia and Barakiel arrived at the place and landed until they were with the rest and took off their helmets. Yeah. A rather interesting and problematic meeting, don't you think, Razavum-sama? Euclid would look at the aforementioned, who looked into the distance until he saw the destruction caused on the ground and what remained of the corpses of his creatures. Heh. Razavum smiled and would take off his helmet to see everyone. I see, so this is DXD, that they were able to get rid of all that garbage in a matter of minutes. I certainly underestimated them, and they came with the best of the best. Well, now you are the ones cornered. Antianira mocked, believing that they had the advantage, but… oh. I would rather say the opposite. Razavum would raise his hand and finger, pointing upwards to the apocalyptic beast behind them, and agrees on high. Let's try our luck. That said, as if he had understood his indication, the Trahexa began to accumulate energy in the 7 mouths of it. The amount of power was great and little, but fearsome. Oh no. Hover yourself, Valerie shouted as loud as he could as he created a large and enormous defensive circle that he reinforced with the boosts, and said circle covered everyone. In response, the majority began to contribute to the defense. Issei, Cao and Asia with their sacred gears strengthened Valerie's defensive circle. So did Riaz, Sona, Sikvera, Tsubaki, Akeno, Irina, Saji, Razor, Venelana, Diehauser, Sylvia, Athena, Brynhilder, Roswis, Graphia, Barakiel, Metatron, Dulio and the Brave Saints. Aorg with his lost dimension accumulated a large amount of purple fog in front of Valerie's defensive circle, indicating that the fog will be the one that receives the first impact. Tiamat created a defensive circle with a symbol of chaos and creation in conjunction with that of infinity and combined it with that of Valerie. Lavinia with her absolute demise would create a large dome of ice over all of them, as Kiba and Jean created walls of swords together. Siegfried would create walls of ice with Dane's leaf, and Mssiah using her Tilo's karma gave the order that they can resist the attack, although he hesitates a bit since he still doesn't activate the whole balance breaker. Let's see if they resist. At the cry of Razavum, the Trahexa roared as it fired 7 powerful blasts of power from its 7 mouths that combined into one. The impact was immediate against DXD's joint defense. The explosion was believed to be so large that the ground even cracked in the distance. This event was seen by all factions of the supernatural world, and everyone was almost ready to go out onto the battlefield after receiving the coordinates from Azazel. Even mythologies that were never interested in the alliance or viewed it with distrust called asking for the coordinates to go help, including the Babylonians. The civilians in each faction were scared to see Trahexa attack Team DXD and hoped that they were okay, since a defense like the one they formed together would be impenetrable. The great curtain of smoke that covered everything began to dissipate, and within seconds, it showed all the members of DXD on the ground, all wounded and looking motionless. It looked like many dragons had died, protecting with their bodies to the young people and others. Even Tannen and his children protected Sylvia with their bodies and were still alive by a miracle. And they were all inside a crater of large diameters and somewhat deep. And Ryudamadu, Seraphol, Gabriel, Penemu, Ravel and the Bale group were scared and worried by what they saw. They hoped that they were okay after seeing the great joint defense they formed. All this while the Mai received a message from her colleagues. It's time to take a direct trip. Razavum and his 3 allies hovered in the air in front of the downed DXD while the Trahexa on agrees relaxed. Ugh. Valerie opened her eyes with regret and stood up as best she could. Her armor was a disaster. It was lucky to still be alive. She looked around and saw that everyone was on the ground. And some tried to stop. Issei was the next to get up, followed by Cao Cao and Asia, whom he protected at the last moment. Crom Cruich even got up, looking very injured like never before thought possible, and in the dragon humanoid form of him, he must have used his power to resist. Mssiah even stood up, bleeding a little from his right arm. The young fictionalist was somewhat surprised, but pleased that Tilo's karma managed to cushion the impact as best he could, but they still did not escape unscathed. Athena was another of those who got up, also injured, followed by Fenrir who was bleeding a little from his side, while Hadi and Skoll were conscious and alive, but on the ground and injured, they need a quick moment of rest. Tiamat also stood up very injured and with her 11 creatures barely alive, as they protected her with their bodies. Hahaha. Excellent. They resisted. Congratulations. Razavum clapped sarcastically at what he saw. They are undoubtedly to be feared. Even I was surprised by their joint defense. But anyway. What did you think of the power of 666? And he didn't even mean it. Oh screw you. Issei was not in the mood like many. Their bodies ached. Their best joint and improvised defense had barely protected them from certain death. You know. While trying to stand up, everyone paid some attention to Razavum. In all my years alive. I have seen only death and slaughter. Even in the past, in our golden age before the Great War, all the deaths, massacres and violence of us demons towards humanity. They were never personal. But do I tell you something? Razavum would pause briefly as he glances at the Trihexa and then looks back at DXD. What I'm going to do to your infuriating, pathetic, and rotten world. Both natural and supernatural. I'm going to enjoy it. How you can't imagine. Razavum would take out the Saint Grail and show it. It's over, DXD. Saying that, the whitish and pale yellow glow of the chalice enveloped Nema, Euclid and Cacabiel, who felt healed of their wounds and with their energies restored, smiling at it. Following that, a great glow would be present in the place and, when said glow of the chalice dissipated, it would be seen how behind the 4 members of Qliphoth all the creatures they had defeated before would appear. The army of demonic creatures now numbering over 100,000 was present, waiting for the order to attack. When all the members of DXD saw that, most of them felt fear and frustration. Was it over? Were they left to their own devices? Would no one come to help? Did they come for nothing? And no. Valery raised his voice as best he could as he stood firm. We haven't lost yet. At least I will fight to the last. Do you want to attack the world? Well, they will do it over my corpse. You know that's my line, right? Issei stood up and signed a little amused. Although. I'll go and say the same thing. I stopped doubting the enemy's advantage a long time ago. If I die, it will be fighting. Hee. I couldn't agree more. Somewhat sore, Crom Cruich would blow his neck and fist bump him. Ugh. Like a goddess who watches over peace and the world. I will give everything until the end. Athena stood firm and would wield the divine spear of hers. I say the same. Tiamat stood up and stood firm, spreading her 4 wings and with the halo of the office symbol on his back. Prepare yourselves. Because you will test the power of the being that is equal to God. Mssiah would also stand firm. I always wondered what it was like to be a hero, and now I think I know. Cao Cao spit out a little blood from his mouth as he takes a step forward. At least I will die with honor and for having recognized and accepted my sins. At his words, the true Longinus would shine in an intense golden blue light. And no one here will surrender. Cao Cao would raise his spear, whose brilliance was beginning to cover the entire place, and shine of supremacy. At those words, golden blue glowing particles emanated from the tip of the true Longinus. And said particles enveloped everyone in a golden blue aura. And at the same time, Asia, who was also enveloped in said particles, felt her magical reserves recharged and even increased. Very good. Twilight healing. The blonde scream was heard loudly throughout the place as the greenish twilight aura with scarlet gold spread throughout the place, enveloping each member of DXD. All the members of DXD felt their wounds heal as their energies were restored. Everyone began to stand up, feeling better and like never before. Very good. Issei stretched his arms a little as her armor was completely restored. Time for revenge. And with more caution. Friends, let's not give up. We still haven't lost. Asia's scream seemed to be enough to restore everyone's spirits, and knowing that now they had to be cautious due to the apocalyptic beast. Euclid, Nema and Cacabiel were put on guard upon witnessing this, while Razavum remained calm and smiling pleased. This will not be as boring as he thought. Are you okay even with what you did? And you too, Asia? Issei asked a quick question to the human and the blonde. Don't worry Isan, I have more energy to spare for a while, Asia exclaimed determinedly. I've been resisting powerful miracle attacks lately and I don't have to worry much about the energy drain. Cao Cao would smile amusedly and sarcastically. Hahaha. So for my part. With me it will be more than enough. Valerie would look with a fearless laugh at the enemies. To put an end to these bastards. It was then that a small communicative circle appeared in the silver-haired girl's ear. But how arrogant. Are you sure they don't require some support? That voice. She heard it very well. Azazel. Behind you. Valerie would look back over the crater where they were. The others, seeing where she was looking, followed her gaze out of curiosity and… From a magic circle, they came out, Azazel, Michael and Serziches. But not only that. At the same time. Behind the three of them, both on the ground and in the sky, hundreds and hundreds of huge magic circles with different symbols began to appear. Many of the DXD members recognized those symbols as being from other mythologies and other factions. From the demonic circles they came out, Lucifuge, Satnachia, Agalirith, Flurity, Sargatanas and Nibiros. And behind them six came a great army of demons with weapons and magic circles in hand, with Ajuka and Falbium being in front of the great demonic army. And next to them they were, Elmenhold, Isaac and Shaltier leading a large army of vampires. From Grigori circles they came out, the other cadres of Grigori, leading a vast army of hundreds of fallen angels and humans who aided the organization. From the angelic circles they came out, the other seraphim of heaven together with their brave saints, and leading a vast army of angels, all of different numbers of wings from the lowest to the highest, followed by hundreds of human warriors of the church, led by Vasco Strada and Edward Cristaldi, who had new replicas on hand. From Nordic circles they came, Odin along with the best gods on his side. Thor, Freyr, Freya, Heimdall, Vidar and other high-ranking gods leading an army of god soldiers, followed by a large army of Valkyries led by Freya. From an even larger circle would emerge a gigantic dragon serpent that looked like compete in size with a Trahexa. It was Midgardsormr. There were even other races with the Norse, among them, the elves of light and darkness, and etc. From Greek circles they came, Zeus accompanied by Poseidon, Apollon, Artemis, Hermes, Hephaestus, Ares, Aphrodite, Demeter, Hera and Hestia. Followed by a great giant with the lower body of a snake and the upper body of a horned man, Typhon, the storm titan and current king of the monsters. And behind them came a vast army of gods from high to low ranking, along with many missing demigods and amazons. It followed that Hades was leading his great army of grim reapers, along with Orcus and Thanatos at his side. From Japanese circles they came out, Izanagi accompanied by his wife Izanami and his three children, Amaterasu, Susanoo and Tsukiyomi. Followed by the other main gods and a vast army of hundreds and hundreds of gods from lower to higher rank. But with the main gods there were others, they were Yusaka and his daughter, Kunu, leading a large army of Yaukes, followed by many humans wearing kimonos, carrying weapons of all kinds, and preparing Japanese circles in their hands. From some circles that Tiamat recognized, they would emerge, Anu accompanied by Antu, Anat, Ishtar and Ereshkigal, leading a large army of gods from minor to greatest rank, as well as humans and other races, etc. From the other circles came the rest. Egyptian, Aztec, Celtic, Persian, Chinese, Inca and Mayan gods. Each main god leading his vast army of gods of all ranks and supernatural creatures. And from Hindu circles he would come out, Mahabali, leading a great army of hundreds of gods of all ranks. Even Indra was present along with the four heavenly kings, his son, Arjuna, and the vanguard of him, led by Sun Wukong, Yulong, Sha Wujing and Zhu Beiji with others. The four members of Qliphoth had different reactions to what they saw. Kakabiel internally wanted to scream like a happy child upon receiving the gift that every child wants, not caring about the result that happens. Nehema and Euclid were among them. Serious and concerned, but the Trahexa will be able against the gods without a doubt. Razavam for his part could not believe his eyes. The entire supernatural world. Allied by the same common enemy. And for some reason, he smiled sincerely at it, without noticing it and without knowing why. The members of DXD upon seeing the vast armies of each faction of the supernatural world. They were in shock without a doubt, it seemed like a miracle among miracles. Valerie seeing everyone. Internally she felt a motivation that she had never felt before. One that encouraged her to fight with everything until the end in order to protect her home. Very good. With us, the Hakuryuku would take flight, being followed by Issei. Upon seeing them, each member of DXD began to take flight to join their respective army. And as everyone prepared, Ryudomaru would be present at the place and they would leave, Serafal, Gabriel, Penemu, Ravel, Sarah Erg and his group, along with Razor and Sona's servants, each going to their respective side. Even many of Gaspar and Leonardo's creatures went with them. Seeing everyone ready and prepared, Valerie would take command while in the air along with Issei. And then, Team DXD. At the shout of the Hakuryuku, everyone prepared for when the signal was given. The girl summoned her sword and, united, each army gave a fierce and great battle roar that was heard throughout the place. With this, each army of each faction went to attack head-on, ready for anything. In response, Razavam only pointed ahead with his sword Kitswakithorn, and the vast army of demonic creatures went to the attack head-on without question, ahead of the four main members of Qliphoth. A race for the clash both on land and in the air, although it was fast, at the same time seemed to take an eternity, but. Everyone. Valerie would inform everyone through the group communication circle, to which all the newcomers were connected. According to Azazel, may the gods take care of the Trahixa, along with the strongest the rest, against those spawns of the devil, let there be none. The majority stated and others did not respond, but they still followed the orders. This is not the time for indifference and deciding who will lead this alliance, they must fight and win. With this, the clash between both sides was made and was imminent. The humans, demons, angels, fallen, vampires, valkyries, amazons, elves of light and darkness, grim reapers, shinigamists, yaokais and what was left of dragons, along with the dragon kings, began the battle against the demonic creatures of Qliphoth. And at the same time, each army of gods from different factions began their attack against the Trahixa, which gave a loud roar that almost stunned everyone. The Trahixa would take flight with 10 pairs of wings of each type of animal, and the battle between the gods and the transcendental beings against the apocalyptic beast went to heaven. On the ground. The deadly forces of each side fought relentlessly. From the air, Seraphil created and launched hundreds of compressed spheres of demonic energy with precision, making sure not to affect his allies. He couldn't freeze the field and even couldn't help against the Trahixa, he had to lead his people. Albium would appear next to him and launch a great slash of demonic energy that killed hundreds of those spawns. They did the same, Lucifuge, Satnachia, Agiliarth, Flurity, Sargatanas and Nibiros, leading the forces of his faction, where they were all of true quality, thanks to Lucifer's true legacy. Michael and Gabriel created and launched hundreds of spears of light that caused strong explosions to the enemies in the distance. Dulio from the air created several enormous tornadoes that engulfed those monsters, as Lint burned them with some kind of large cannons attached to a backpack on his back, sending out enormous and fierce purple flames as the great angel of purple fire burned every enemy in his sight. And each angel, brave saint and warriors of the church fought hard and with everything they had. Azazel would put on his armor with the power of Fafnir, Domefold Dragon another armor, and would create and launch hundreds of spears of light that exploded after impacting his enemies. Penemu would create hundreds of spears of purple lightning and these at the same time. Impacting the ground created electrical paths that electrocuted any nearby enemy. Each member of Grigori fought hard and with everything. Being supported by Lavinia, Natsum and Kauki. Brynhildr and Antianira led the Valkyries and Amazons respectively, and each one synchronized very well to finish off these monsters once and for all. The elves attacked with light and dark attacks respectively, and sometimes combining to finish faster. The Grim Reapers and Shinigamis easily cut and slit the throats of these creatures of the devil, they even took the opportunity to reap their lives and absorb the souls of these things, where they had to admit that their souls are very powerful and were good food. Isaka transformed into her giant Kyuubi form and would launch a fierce bluish flame at the demonic creatures, burning them mercilessly while Kunu was on her back. The Yaokais attacked with weapons and their powers, launching magical Yujutsu attacks. Biku, Sha and Zhu joined them to back them up, and their attacks and so on helped a lot. The dragons were fighting harder than ever, being led by the dragon kings who came along with their hordes of dragons. Tannen, Bova and Yulong launched fierce flames that turned those spawns to ashes, as Sylvia launched all kinds of elemental attacks. Zenobia and Irina, accompanied by Vasco and Edward, cut and slit the throats of each enemy creature with their weapons. Where the two Durandal wielders launched powerful destructive attacks from their swords, annihilating many of those things. Thiba fought hard alongside his dragon knights, cutting down every enemy in his path. Tomo, Benia, Carloman, Cirrus, Baruka, Liban, Arthur, Elaine, Siegfried and Jean joined him, forming an incredible attack team. Where the Blonde's dragon of swords helped prevent the overflow of enemies, while the Knight Chrysel paralyzed the enemies by increasing their gravity, and the Knight Furkas with his copies finished off everyone who got in the way. Approach in conjunction with the Knight's dragons. Riaz, Sona, Venelana, Ravel, Sikfera, Razor and Diehauser fought against any enemy that approached them, even covering their backs to avoid surprise attacks. Haneko hit and burned every enemy that approached her, while Roswas fiercely bombarded every enemy that approached. They were joined, Gandoman, Ladora, Yura, Rugel, Isabella, Shulin, Kuroka, Lafay and Heracles. They hit and bombed any enemy that approached them. Saji burned with his black flames any enemy that approached him, and he was next to him, Saraerg wearing Regulus's armor. Followed by Aruko, Asia, Momo, Ria and Mihi who supported them along with the Phoenix pawns, Mira, Nai, Lee, Nell, Marion, Shuria and Burant. The Kendo created a great dragon made of holy lightning, and said entity destroyed every enemy in its path. And at the same time, a large and ferocious bird made of red fire appeared and destroyed more enemies near her. The Gremory Queen recognized that, and when she turned to her side, she saw it. Suzaku ni, did you really think I would miss this? The the current leader of the Himejima clan and Akeno's cousin, smiled amusedly as she flew on her own and without wings, something very useful for those who use Senjutsu and Jujutsu. With this, both cousins would notice more enemies approaching, and they launched together against what was coming. Akeno raised her aura to its current maximum, showing her 6 fallen wings wrapped in lightning and fire, and beginning to emanate her sacred aura and demonic. Time to achieve the impossible. Akeno accumulated a large amount of lightning and fire, combined with her light and demonic energy, creating a large dragon with 8 heads about 4 meters high made of these elements. And at the same time, Suzaku accumulated a large amount of red flames, creating a large firebird almost the same size as the electric flaming dragon. Percussion Hinazuma or Tsubasa, the entities of both cousins Himejimas, roared fiercely and went on the attack, destroying every enemy in their path. Tsubaki, for her part, fought alongside her family and clan. Her uncle, Kiyotora Shinra, and her cousin, Byako Shinra, the 3 of them fought hard and together with the members of their clan, destroying every demonic creature that approached. Aoryu Nakiri and those of his clan manipulated the earth to crush those things. Seiryu Kushihashi created several water dragons that devastated every enemy in their path, while Genbu Daomen froze every enemy in their path. The vampires seemed more aggressive when fighting against the demonic creatures, and that was understandable. Because their faction was almost destroyed by Qliphoth, it is normal for them to be somewhat or very resentful. The vampires did not hesitate to bite and suck the blood of these spawns of the demon, thus strengthening themselves to continue in the fight. Isaac and Shaltier launched powerful bursts of vampiric aura, and Gaius Vladi at their side hit and bit any creature that approached. Ilemahald he led a small squad of Gundam dolls that fired blasts of white and black magic, and the vampire launched her own vampire blasts, as she was supported by her longtime friend, Malarka Vordenberg, who punched and kicked any enemy creature that approached. The mortal forces on land were doing a great job against the demonic creatures, and it didn't seem like it would be long before they finished them all. But the problem would be whether those things continue to revive or not. The war that was taking place in said very isolated area of the underworld was seen by all the civilians of each supernatural faction, along with a good number of soldiers who stayed to keep their people in order and calm by order of their leaders. No one could believe what they saw. Even the children interpreted it as a kind of live movie. The battle was intense and bloody, no one could deny that. Many already remember the story of when the 3 biblical sides allied themselves in the past during their war to eliminate the 2 celestial dragons. And this new war was like an interpretation of that. All the supernatural and mythological factions and sides of the world have joined together for a common enemy, one that endangered the current world as they know it. But what no one knew is that this was the world supernatural war that would unite everyone and guide them towards true peace. And to do so, they had to win. DXD had to win, no matter what. Mssiah looked from the air at the intense war that was taking place. This surpassed everything he had previously imagined, and he put on a half smile at it. It's time. He raised his hand to the sky, and Balance breaker, the young fictionalist would be surrounded by a whitish-grayish glow. And when said glow dissipated, he showed Mssiah, whose body was covered with a futuristic-looking exoskeleton, transcendental arrival as being equal to God became present in the place, the field where the war broke out, and much of the distance were surrounded by an invisible barrier that covered everything. No, rather. All without exception they had been transported to what would be a special pocket dimension made by the young fictionalist. This is the combined balance breaker of Telos Karma and Innovate Clear. When Mssiah activates it, he becomes a being that is undoubtedly a transcendental being or much more, and here the absolute law is this is the double balance breaker that not even the gods can oppose. With this, Mssiah would take flight to help defeat Trahixa. Although the young man knew that even with his maximum, he will not be able to defeat the apocalyptic beast alone, just as he does not believe he can control the actions of the Trahixa, but he will make sure to at least deflect its attacks and do his own thing. When the time comes to apply the seal, or kill it. Opening up, he passed between the DXD soldiers. Kakabiel did not hesitate to cut down and kill any DXD force that stood in his way. He created and launched a powerful and gigantic spear of light that eradicated a group of demon soldiers and perhaps some other nobles with his servants. This reminded him a little of the biblical war. He used to kill legions of demons and angels on his own and come out unscathed and could last for hours battling without rest and without getting tired. He admits it, good times without a doubt. But now is 1,000 times better. Feeling that a powerful attack was coming against him made him dodge it. Kakabiel would see who his attacker was, and let's finish where we left off. Barakiel appeared in front of his brother, with a large and fearsome aura of holy lightning around him. You said it, brother. Kakabiel began to give a bestial succession of cuts to his enemy, with his swords of light. Barakiel swung his own swords made of holy lightning, managing to repel every attack that was directed at him. Cacabiel continued the attack against his brother, being happy for the daring defense that Barakiel was currently offering, who was giving his all, guided by the motivation to not only save the world, but also to protect his daughter, and above all knowing that, perhaps, his wife, Shuri, is watching them right now from beyond, wishing them luck and let them live. Cacabiel was slowly being pushed back by Barakiel. The Star of God was pushed back after blocking an attack from his brother, taking distance. With that, Cacabiel created and launched 100 spears of light that shot out at an impressive speed. The holy lightning of God took flight, entering that deadly rain. By making relatively impossible maneuvers, he dodged the light spears with a minimal margin. Cacabiel's gaze remained fixed on his intrepid opponent. He continued to mercilessly throw the spears of light in the hope of wounding or at least repelling Barakiel's advance. Barakiel managed to break through his brother's incredible offensive, raising his swords and preparing to attack directly. Cacabiel did the same with his own swords. The impact of both cadres and brothers was brutal. The sound of the blows shook the air forcefully. Soon both separated and began a race, gaining altitude and speed. 2 arrows of light shot out, one following the other. In an instant they were face to face and then they separated, repeating the action consecutively. Cacabiel discarded his swords and prepared a huge spear of light empowered by the boosts of his artificial sacred gear, without giving any voice command. The attack became large and powerful with every second. Barakiel looked decisively at that powerful attack, preparing to counter it. The yellow lightning bolts were joined by blue ones, and those 2 bolts of different colors combined with the light caused the swords of the holy lightning of God to shine with greater intensity, illuminating the place where they were. Great Star Spear. The enormous spear of repowered light was thrown with quite force by Cacabiel. The deadly energy it contained approached with a speed that was difficult to follow with normal sight, and it seemed that it was impossible to dodge it. But that was not Barakiel's intention, who prepared and shook his swords with force. According to the boosts of his artificial sacred gear, he increased the power of his attack, causing the 2 lightning bolts of different colors that surrounded the swords of impure light to shoot towards the front, intercepting the incredible attack of the Star of God, causing an explosion that engulfed both combatants. The light and smoke generated by the explosion made it impossible to see what the result of that clash of powers was. The first to be visible was Cacabiel, whose armor was copiously cracked, a sign of the incredible destructive power that the explosion released. Barakiel was the second to appear, and his armor didn't show much damage. Cacabiel muttered an insult after seeing that his attack did not have the expected effect. The Star of God launched a pair of enormous spears of light as a distraction. Barakiel deflected his attacks with his swords, and Cacabiel laughed at it, shortened the distance between them, and with his hands took his brother's, taking him by surprise and throwing him forcefully towards a rocky building on the ground. The damage that Barakiel received was quite a bit, and he couldn't help but spit blood out of his mouth. Barakiel stood up from where he fell with force and a certain pain in his body. He stumbled a little due to the disorientation caused by his brother's bestial attack. Cacabiel descended quickly towards where his brother was, and once he was at the same level he invoked his swords of light and began to attack fiercely. Barakiel responded with some difficulty to his brother's attacks, but as the first blows passed, he became noticeably accustomed. In that place, you could only hear the sword blows generated by the swords of both cadres when they met and collided, and the flashes were somewhat perceptible in the distance. Barakiel and Cacabiel were evenly matched in this combat. Their years of experience and power they made up for it, but only the holy lightning of God had great will and daring. Both cadres were determined to defeat. Cacabiel, after using the wings of his armor to block his brother's attacks, then took Barakiel by the head and projected his against his opponent. It didn't matter that both of their helmets broke, the power was enough to disorient the holy lightning of God, who with a feint of will imitated his brother's action, hitting his face with his. Such an action made both cadres take several steps back. Cacabiel recovered first and was thrown into the air. Barakiel looked at that and took flight against his brother. Once again both cadres met in the air, holy lightning swords flashed yellow-blue, and slowly Cacabiel's swords of light were overcome by the power of those weapons of Barakiel, who added more force to the pressure he exerted pushing his brother. The holy lightning of God placed his hand in front of his brother's face and snapped his fingers without hesitation. Soon an electrical explosion shook Cacabiel's head, completely disorienting him. Seeing his opportunity, Barakiel hit the back of his brother's head with an incredible kick, sending the Star of God flying against the ground. Fragments of metal were noticeable during the fall. Cacabiel's armor had collapsed from the force of the kick. Cacabiel barely got up from that fall, blood was running down his temple, and his breathing was erratic, but even so he couldn't help but smile. He looked up to look at Barakiel who was in the air, and at this moment, he was no longer interested in what was happening around him nor in the outcome of this war. In fact, nothing anymore, he didn't care. In his mind there was only one wish: to end this epic fight, regardless of the result. Barakiel, that scream hit the skies with enormous power as Cacabiel took flight again. Akabil was the response that the holy lightning of God gave as he propelled himself to meet again that deranged brother of his. Both cadres met halfway, enveloped by their own aura of power. Those two energies fought to find supremacy, opposing each other, releasing large electrical discharges, destroying the surrounding area and everyone who was nearby. After a brief moment of remaining like that, they both separated and took the necessary distance to regain their strength. Both cadres and brothers did not take their eyes off each other, they prepared their swords to deliver the last blow, the one they needed to finally end this fight. Impressive. Barakiel. Kakabiel was breathing quite hard. Thank you. For this moment, the holy lightning of God remained silent at his brother's words, not wanting to hear what he had to say. Kakabiel nodded silently at his brother's response, words were not needed, just one more action. The Star of God prepared the most powerful sword of light that his power allowed and repowered it with the boosts. Barakiel imitated his brother's action with his holy lightning sword and got ready for the last blow. They both stayed like that for a few moments, which seemed like an eternity. When an explosion was heard in the distance, that was the signal they needed to deliver the final blow. The speed of both was astonishing, making the movement imperceptible. When it finished and it seemed that they had only passed by the other, both turned their backs to the other. Within seconds, the armor of both cadres was completely destroyed, but Barakiel remained in place for a few moments until he spat blood from his mouth and grabbed his abdomen. Kakabiel turned around while breathing heavily, his expression was calm and he showed a sincere smile, and within seconds, the Star of God's chest opened, releasing a huge amount of blood. "Are you satisfied, my brother?" Barakiel asked, still clutching his wounded abdomen as he turned to look at his brother. Of course. Kakabiel would fall back, there was no longer malice on his face, there was only peace in his being. "I'm finally satisfied." But that said, the Star of God's body would simply fall to the ground. Without getting back up or anything. Raphia fired a powerful silver demonic beam from the tip of his spear that left a great path of destruction, killing many of the demonic creatures in its path. It was then that the maid Lucifuge felt the imminent danger nearby, followed by a familiar presence and, showing off her reflexes, Graphia moved from her place, dodging the accurate attack, which seemed more like a warning one. She supported herself with her hands and did a half-turn in the air, holding her spear firmly. Time for the final round, Nisan. Euclid was in the place where his sister was before. "Well, Nisan. Do you like this result? A war." Euclid would look around as the battle continued. "If you had killed me years ago during the Civil War, could you have prevented this? I think maybe it wouldn't have made that much difference, but all the atrocities I have committed were because of you, Nisan. I did them for you, so that you would recognize me. And that is your sin. Not having killed me when you had the chance." Raphia stood still in her place while her arms trembled a little. As much as she wants to deny it, it was true. She should have killed him years ago or taken him away as her prisoner of war, but she didn't. Seeing that, Euclid without hesitation launched himself against his sister, ready to give her a fierce and deadly slash with his sword from his sacred gear, wrapped in his silver-black demonic aura, but, looking like a doll, Graphia raised her spear. And he blocked his brother's attack, barely. A struggle began. Ataudo. You are right in your words. Graphia spoke with a certain smugness. My sin is having let you live, since in doing so many who did not deserve it suffered. Even if my hands are also stained in the innocent blood that you shed. Graphia would remove her helmet, revealing her face. Then I will dedicate my entire life to atone for my sin. Even if I die in the process. Gee. You are very hypocritical, Nisan. Euclid would also take off his helmet, showing his sarcastic and longing smile. But that's what I like and love about you. I'm sorry I can't correspond to you. Graphia grew stronger in her struggle as did her brother, and both created an impulse that took them away from each other for a moment. But I'm already married. But that said, both of them attacked each other head-on again. Both Lucifuge brothers clashed their weapons, and the equality of power was most noticeable, but the difference would be made by the skill of each contestant. Graphia made use of the natural flexibility that her body offered to be able to avoid each blow charged at her. That her brother gave with the intention of harming her, while Euclid used his greater experience to counterattack his sister's attacks. The combat escalated in brutality, the area where both Lucifuge brothers were fighting received the damage that both inflicted against the other, the rock buildings, the floor, and nearby enemies received the damage and had the wounds that neither of them accepted to receive. Blurs were the only thing that could be perceived of those weapons, which collided from time to time. Graphia kept her gaze fixed on her brother, studying any possible opening he might have and exploiting it to the maximum. It was then that a memory came to her mind as she continued focused on the fight, remembering the fight they both had in the Civil War. Graphia in a matter of almost nothing left her little brother dejected and defeated on the ground, and that. Euclid lashed out harder, trying to get his sister off guard. Grafia was slowly beginning to understand her brother's limits if she had to compare him to the abilities of the evil pieces. Clearly Euclid was a completely balanced and good queen. In each of its factors. And although his magic is very good and excellent, he preferred to fight this way. The attacks between both Lucifuge brothers continued and continued. Both were so evenly matched that they began to show signs of fatigue on their faces. Grafia already felt her arms and hands going numb. Her brother's power is undoubtedly equal to his, perhaps even a little higher than his. Which wouldn't surprise her. Since the Civil War, Grafia has never set foot on a battlefield or the like, not even in the raiding games, but she still maintained a good condition so as not to degrade in these years. On the other hand, her brother. He must have trained every day for this moment, really. She can't help but feel proud of him. She still remembers when he told her that one day she would be at his level. It was somewhat childish, but ambitious and admirable. And he must respond appropriately to his great effort. Full booster, her artificial sacred gear responded to her wish, giving her a nice temporary increase in power. No doubt, the CANCELADA's main ability is admirable, but she can feel the certain annoyance she causes in the body. She is surprised that Issei has adapted very quickly to something so absurd that clearly causes a lot of stress. Even so. Grafia blocked with her spear a strong blow from her brother that made her retreat back. With that, the maid prepared her spear by enveloping it in silver demonic aura with blue rays and fired a powerful demonic electric beam, one that managed to shake the ground. But because the speed with which it was done was to be feared. What came next was. Euclid jumped to dodge the attack that was coming towards him. Immediately afterwards, Grafia created 2 magic circles behind her of rainbow color and after quickly charging energy in said circles, not to the maximum, he fired a large charge of silver demonic energy and elemental attributes combined into one. The attack was going towards Euclid at an incredible speed. To say that the youngest Lucifuge managed to dodge the attack in its entirety was a big lie. That he had simply received the brush and that it had hurt him with such severity was difficult to digest. Euclid fell to the ground, wounded in the right area of his body, where he barely received a touch from the attack. The younger Lucifuge smiled sarcastically at it. The monstrous power that his sister has. He is getting used to the rhythm of it. Grafia discarded her 2 magic circles and began to charge all the power into her spear. One attack is all she needs. The silver demonic energy and all the elemental attributes combined glowed dark luminous. Grafia stood in a pose with his spear in hand, and silver javelin. On an impulse, the maid Lucifuge attacked her brother at blinding and unreal speed. When she was in front of him, ready to stab him in the chest. Grafia saw Euclid's satisfied expression as the image of the enthusiastic Euclid from the past came to mind. That alone was enough to make Grafia commit a crime again. Error and sin. I doubt. By inertia and instinct, she stopped her attack, and the tip of her spear was centimeters from Euclid's chest. You disappoint me again, Ni-san. Euclid now had a disappointed and indignant face. There she is to give him the final blow that would end his life with all the right in the world, and she commits again his mistake. And he will not forgive himself for that. Let's see if you like it. This, putting the spear aside, Euclid quickly stabbed his sister in the right side of her abdomen with his sword. Grafia spit out blood at that. She has never felt pain like this in her life, and seeing how Euclid gathered himself and grabbed his face with her hand and caressed it longingly. I scared her a little. Nia. At least I will fulfill something of my fantasies. Euclid brought his face closer and closer to his sister's, and what he did next was something that Grafia Lucifuge herself would try to forget for the rest of her life. Euclid planted a deep kiss on her lips. Grafia moaned from the disgust she felt at seeing herself defiled by her own brother, and Euclid stopped her from trying to push him away. Well, she enjoyed the act and hoped it would have the reaction she expected. Letting tears flow from her eyes while she was still being kissed, Grafia gripped her spear tightly. And without hesitation, but with pain, she would stab her little brother's chest with her spear, the tip of which even pierced the demon's back. Upon feeling that, Euclid felt calm as he separated from the kiss with his sister. Her expression indicated that he felt satisfied and at peace. Finally. You did it. Even on the verge of dying and with blood coming out of his mouth, Euclid caressed his sister's face. If she was going to die. I wanted it to be at your hands. But anyway. From a magic circle, Euclid would take out a kind of relic that he extended to his sister. Here. This has most of the seals that 666 had. Use it to seal it along with whatever you have. With his trembling hand, Euclid placed the relic in his sister's hand. At first I didn't understand why they believed this, but now I know. Now I can leave in peace. And if they fail, well, I'll wait for you on the other side, Ni-san. Where I hope we can be together at last. As a man and woman. That said, Euclid would slowly close his eyes and his entire body would tense, still being held by the spear stuck in his chest. with his gaze lowered, with his hair covering his eyes and squeezing the relic with some force. In his hand, Greyfear removed her spear from the corpse of her little brother as she received it in her arms. And for the first time in her life, Valery Lucifer cried from sadness and pain in silence, hugging Euclid's lifeless body who had a smile on his face. With this, her past mistake has been remedied, but with the price of suffering, perhaps, eternally. By having his hand stained with the blood of his own blood brother. The battle against the Trahexa continued while the mortal combat on the ground continued. All the gods were fighting to keep the apocalyptic beast at bay and make the damage accumulate so they could destroy it once and for all. But saying it was easier than doing it. The Trahexa regenerated from each wound it received, no matter how small or big. And that was worrying. Tiamat together with her 11 divine chaotic creatures attacked one of the heads of the Trahexa in an attempt to keep it busy with them, while the other gods did the same with each head. The dragon deity accumulated a large amount of greenish water with reddish particles and said mass was its eyes. When launching its attack, it mercilessly burned the head of the Trahexa that was attacking. The damage that said head of the beast received was too much and it seemed that his regeneration was slower in that part. So, At that, her senses warned her of danger and a presence near her, so Tiamat raised her arm wrapped in aura and deflected the diabolical attack that was against her towards a side. I guess I should finish you first. Heh. Obviously. Bitch. Nema with her armor restored stood in front of the dragon deity. Tiamat would look at his creatures and help the rest, I'll go in a moment. The 11 creatures roared in affirmation and went to continue the battle against the apocalyptic beast along with the rest of the gods. Let's get this over with. Nema in response only created 6 diabolical circles that had the symbols of each mythology in the world and a large amount of aura and power accumulated in these. And within seconds, a great rain of diabolical blasts of all kinds were against the deity dragon, who did not flinch and divinity in creation that guide and give life to the world, where they are part of the infinite cycle and dreams. Answer my call. And protect those who work for the future. Heavenly Draconian Shield. After the chant and gathering divine chaotic energy with red jet energy, Tiamat formed a huge circle made of said energies that acted as a shield at first glance. What came next was amazing. The diabolical attacks impacted the energy shield, but instead of staying there or disappearing, the devilish attacks seemed to be absorbed by the energy shield and just before the succubus increased the intensity of her attacks. From Tiamat's circle of energy a great torrent of divine energy was shot bluish with jet red and the diabolical power of the enemy attacks. The reflected attack neutralized the enemy blasts and it continued its path at high speed against Nema, who didn't expect that. The reflected and repowered attack hit Nema squarely, creating a fierce explosion. When the smoke cleared, Nema appeared with her armor badly damaged. Seeing this, Tiamat did not hesitate and began to launch a rain of small but powerful divine chaotic blasts with an aura of the infinite. Nema would raise her forbidden level defensive circles as best she could, which cracked with each blocked attack. Seeing this, Tiamat stops her blasts and charges her fists and body in her divine chaotic aura, then shortens her distance at high speed with the succubus and begins to hit her again and again in her abdomen, face and give her a blow. Kick her knee in the stomach. Nema spit out blood at the blows she received, but she still continued fighting without giving up, responding as best she could to Tiamat's blows. Nema retreats after launching a diabolical blast and then sends her 2 extendable heads on her back to attack. Tiamat dodges both heads with agility as she grabs them by the necks and then pulls them, making Nema go against her will, and that the succubus receives a tremendous blow to the stomach from the dragon deity. Said blow was enveloped in her chaotic water and it dissolved the armor in that area. Nema flew away after the blow received and rearranged herself barely in the air. It was noticeable that she still did not give up. And no, I still haven't lost. With her helmet destroyed and seeing the frustration on Nehema's face, she wrapped herself in her diabolical aura that even combined with her light, I'll just kill you a single attack. That was what she expected. Tiamat also wrapped herself in her divine chaotic aura, along with Office's jet aura. The mere presence of both made the place where they were tremble. Nema with her arms raised would create a gigantic diabolical circle with the symbols of every mythology in the world as she carried all the power she had into it. Tiamat did something similar. I created a magic circle with the symbol of chaos and creation, along with that of infinity. The charge of power in both circles seemed to take forever, but it was time. Thousand Diabolism Smasher. The Konshim Madoka. From the diabolical circle came a fierce and enormous torrent of diabolical energy with demonic light. And from the circle of the dragon deity came a powerful torrent of greenish-blue water with reddish particles and a divine chaotic aura with that of infinity at its end. Around. And what seemed like it was going to become a clash of powers that wanted to overcome the other took a backseat. Tiamat's attack consumed and almost slowly engulfed Nehema's as she went against her. The succubus did not, he could believe it, and When he realized it, the dragon deity's attack had already hit him squarely, creating a fierce explosion. When the smoke cleared, Nema was seen now without her armor and her body was battered and destroyed, even burned. Her right eye was missing, as was her right arm. Hole in half of the left. His legs were even destroyed up to a little above the knees, and the right side of the torso was also destroyed. It seems that I lost again. What a bad joke. Even in her pitiful state of being, Nema laughed at herself sarcastically. Heh. What are you? And what did you do? Remember this name even in the afterlife, mortal. Tiamat would sigh and raise the aura of him. I am the lesser dragon mother goddess of chaos and creation. The same one who was killed by her children to create our pantheon. And the one who was reincarnated into a mortal. I am Tiamat. Of the Babylonian mythology. And what you received was my primordial water. One that can dissolve everything and even destroy the soul itself. You are finished. Heh. I see. Nema looked down with an ironic laugh. And to think that I fought with a being like that. Heh. Oh well. Bye. But that said, the succubus's body would simply fall towards the ground. But not before the demon from her hand threw something. It was her sacred gear book. That. Tiamat upon seeing it at high speed would take the sacred gear book and look at it analytically. And to think that these idiots could create something like that. But from how damaged it looked, it was a fact that this was merely a somewhat good copy, what an original sacred gear is. It was able to unleash all the power of the mythological being sealed inside, but other than that, it is not an original one. So squeezing the artificial sacred gear tightly with his hands, Tiamat would break it and with her flames, she would get rid of the metal. Whereas she did. Something landed in front of her. A very dark purple orb almost black with a red aura around it. The soul of Issei. Now you can go rest in peace. That was the only thing Tiamat said to the soul, not knowing if he would receive an answer, but that will not be the case. A sinister voice was present and suddenly, Issei's soul would fly until it was in someone's hands. It was a dark being in the shape of a ghost with a body jet black. He has a muscular build and bright red eyes like fire, as well as horns on his head. And a chaotic aura emanated from his body. This, my creation and son, belongs to me. Engraminyu. Tiamat narrowed his eyes as he saw the evil god of Zoroastrianism from Persian mythology. What are you up to? Nothing. Engraminyu would shrug her shoulders. Only that I felt the aura of my creation nearby and I came to check it out. And thanks to you for freeing him from that object where they took advantage of his power, I have recovered him. In time I will be able to give him a new body while I keep his soul. Do you not understand the situation we are in? Tiamat raised his aura a little, as a sign of his anger at what the evil god intended with the evil dragon. Of course. But it never hurts. Engraminyu would make his eyes shine menacingly. You decide, dragon deity Tiamat. We can fight each other if what I do bothers you, or fight the apocalyptic beast. But not both. DCH. Tiamat would click her tongue irritably. If we come out of this alive. And you dare to do something you shouldn't another day. I will erase you from this world. I'll keep that in mind. When he said that, Engraminyu would retreat from the place, rejoining the battle against the Trihexa. Tiamat would do the same and go with those from his mythology. They had to put together a good strategy and use skills and powers that prevent the regeneration of that beast. The battle against the apocalyptic imperial beast was in its final stretch. And everyone was determined more than ever to end this. Chapter 53 Team DXD vs Final Part 3. The war to save the world and defeat the apocalyptic imperial beast continued, and that was saying a lot. Even with the mutual cooperation of all the gods of the world and their armies, added to the gods and transcendental beings of the world top 10, almost to the top of it, the Trihexa seemed unstoppable without a doubt. The joint, combined and high-impact attacks capable of destroying a country in an instant, although they generated great damage to the beast, it regenerated almost instantly. And that was bad and scary. No one knew how long they had been fighting since they started. They have certainly been fighting for less than 10 minutes and they feel like they have been fighting for hours, maybe even days, which wasn't much of an exaggeration given the adrenaline everyone was feeling at that moment. The Trihexa of one of its heads launched a powerful beam of concentrated energy, which upon touching a few minor and medium god soldiers, completely eliminated them without any mercy. Midgardsormr, the sleeping dragon, one of the dragon kings and one of Loki's sons, whose power is almost close to that of Fenrir, it is as big as the Trihexa, or even larger. When Midgardsormr felt the terrifying presence of the apocalyptic beast and that Odin summoned him for his help, he did not hesitate to put aside his nap to go out and help. Per side because he does not want the end of the world, and on the other, because this situation is almost similar to Ragnarok and his duty was to participate in the battle of the end of the world. Midgardsormr with the gigantic serpentine body of his enveloped the body of the Trihexa and began to attack him with his lethal poison, capable of killing even gods. According to the prophecy of Ragnarok, Midgardsormr was to fight the Norse god of thunder, Thor, and in the end, he would die at his hands. Of course, not before infecting him with his poison that would kill Thor a few minutes after he finished off the world serpent. And said poison made the Trahexa roar in fury, and the wounds caused by the poison did not seem to heal. They were going to regenerate for the moment. Fenrir went to cooperate with his brother, he made a great jump, and with his claws, he grabbed the Trahexa's body, starting to bite and claw at it with one paw. The fangs of the wolf god slayer are no joke, and you can tell in the wounds it causes. Obviously Fenrir also launched divine blasts into the wounds to cause internal damage to the beast. Thor would spin his Norse hammer, Mjolnir, charging it with powerful divine blue rays. To then throw it at one of the Trahexa's heads and it is seriously electrocuted, making it roar. Only for a few seconds. Vidar with a sudden, fast and powerful kick charged with divine aura, I decapitated the Trahexa head. But it regenerated shortly after. What a bummer. Even so, both Norse gods and brothers are so powerful that they are in the world top 10. The Trahexa wanted to attack with one of its arms, but a fist smaller than its own barely stopped its blow, although it was not at full force. Tiffin had blocked the Trahexa's blow with his own while flying. With a large pair of wings on its back. I know this is a battle to save the world and all, but I still can't help but be excited by this moment. Tiffin looked like a happy child with his eyes shining as many artificial clouds appeared in heaven, having the opportunity to face the beast mentioned in that Bible. I would gladly accept death even. Tiffin is the storm titan in Greek mythology and is currently the most powerful titan of all and one of the most powerful existences in the world top 10. Tiffin is so strong that only Hades is the only one on the Greek side who surpasses him. According to mythology, Tiffin along with his mate Echidna raised many well-known monsters such as Orthrus, Sphinx, Regulus, Cerberus, Ladon, Hydra, Eagle and Chimera. That being the reason why he is called the king of monsters. Tiffin from his artificial clouds created and launched powerful huge hurricanes combined with lightning. These electrical hurricanes ran through the Trahexa's body, causing serious damage and did not seem to stop even if the beast's wounds healed yes or no. Not compliant with that, Tiffin also released a fierce flame from his mouth and at the same time created more hurricanes and had them combine with his fire. The hurricanes of fire and lightning respectively dealt endless damage to the apocalyptic beast. Hades would raise his divine evil scythe wrapped in his aura and deliver a powerful cut that managed to sever one of the Trahexa's heads from the base of the neck, only to then invoke several Greek circles, from which came his blessed arms of Hades, and these began to give fierce blows to the apocalyptic beast, even hoping to take his life little by little, although he doubts it. Hades knows that he is very strong, too. But not even with all his power and his best means will he be able to defeat the Trahexa. Prom Cruich in his dragon humanoid form and with his aura and power 100% his, he enveloped himself in his fire and draconian aura and then forcefully attacked the Trahexa in one of its heads, managing to pierce it. And at the same time, a powerful cutting attack of divine and solar energy cut the head of the beast from the base from the neck, causing it to fall. Prom Cruich would see the person responsible for that and fix an acquaintance. The Celtic god of the sun, La. The one who murdered his master, for which he was grateful in the past. La is also in the world top 10. His power could be compared to Thor and being superior to Fenrir by several margins. The Celtic sun god and the crescent circle dragon exchanged glances for a moment only to then nod in agreement and smile sideways. They seemed like friends or acquaintances from a long time ago. But that's a story for another time. Now the main thing. Ereshkigal moved at high speed in the air and with his scythe he left large and long cuts on the Trahexa's body. The life energy of this thing is enormous and without a doubt neither she nor any other god of death will be able to reap the life of this beast, perhaps only weaken it. Ereshkigal is the main goddess of death of Babylonian mythology, along with Hera, the god of death, war and destruction, and Nergal, another god of hell, as well as Nanazu, another equal god of hell, these last three being the seconds in command of hell, which is ruled by Ereshkigal. Ereshkigal is strong enough to enter the world top 10, while her three compatriots do not enter said top, but they are still very powerful that they can even make things difficult for Ereshkigal if the three of them face her together. Ereshkigal raises her scythe and creates magic circles, from which they emerge, Uchakus, demons of hell that she governs, and that are similar to the Grim Reapers in the area of consuming souls and taking lives. She had already left a good army of these helping the mortal forces on the ground, and there are still plenty of them in his home that he can summon whenever he wants. The Uchakus went on the attack with their scythes and began to cut the body of the Trahexa, be that as it may. The Babylonian goddess of death, whose appearance is that of a young woman of about 20 years old with long blonde hair, she would watch from a distance as Tiamat joined the fight. She smiled to see her progenitor return to her, after all, she had been the one to help Tiamat with the rebirth ritual in case she died. Although she could modify the ritual to ensure that at the moment of rebirth, Tiamat still has the powers, memories and divinity of her from the beginning. The dragon deity told her clearly that she wanted to be reborn as a mortal, and with her divinity and memories of her sealed from her, as a new life. Ereshkigal at first didn't understand why, but she fulfilled her order because she did. Tiamat always had a slightly strange mentality for doing things. And that was due to a certain degree of omnipotence of hers, and did she even know that this was going to happen? Whether it was like that or not, it didn't matter now. They had a battle to win. Ishtar from the tip of her divine spear fired a powerful beam of pink divine energy that hit the Trihexa in one of its fragile points thanks to the poison of Midgardsormr. Ishtar is the Babylonian goddess of love, fertility and war of mythology Babylonian, in addition to being the protector of Uruk and the sister of Ereshkigal. Her appearance is that of a very beautiful woman who appears to be in her 20s, long black hair with 2 pigtails, and was wearing white robes with somewhat revealing gold edges. Ishtar is stronger than her sister and is in the top 10 world. Quetzalcoatl launches powerful large and concentrated rays of light that pass through the Trihexa's body with some effort. Quetzalcoatl is the Aztec goddess of life, light, wisdom, fertility, winds, knowledge and learning. She is the leading goddess of Aztec mythology and the one who is known as the serpent with feathers and wings. Quetzalcoatl is a blonde woman with long hair down to her waist and wore orange clothes with red and green details from her pantheon. She is also part of the world top 10. She is so strong that it is said that she fought against Drake Gotch on one occasion in the past when he was training to beat Albion, a fact that almost no one knows. Quetzalcoatl was one of the lucky or unlucky ones who were only test opponents that Drake used to see how much he had improved. To say she didn't have fun would be a lie. Quetzalcoatl had so much fun fighting Drake that she grew stronger after their fight, hoping to face him again one day. The Ahura Mazda with his sword made of his divine aura launched a powerful slashing attack of divine energy that severed one of the Trihexa's heads from the base of the neck, but it was obvious that it was going to regenerate at some point. They had to see if his regeneration had a limit. The Ahura Mazda is the king of the gods in Persian mythology and the creator god of his pantheon, where he created the gods and humans on his side. Not to mention, his natural nemesis is Angra Mainyu, who has caused him a lot of trouble, even though she defeated him in their war millennia ago. The Ahura Mazda is one of the gods that also enters the world top 10. The Persian god king of creation is what many would call a blue light humanoid shape, and his eyes shined gold. That is Ahura Mazda's original form, although he can also take on a more human form only in matters of formality. Sada would envelope himself in his divine solar aura and with a swift impulse, he would charge the Trihexa into his body, only to then cause his solar flames to travel through much of the beast's body, damaging and burning it mercilessly. Sada he is the Persian god of the sun and one of the most worshipped gods in his pantheon. His appearance is that of a man with hair of a color and shine similar to the sun, and he wore clothes in the style of his pantheon. Sada is also part of the world top 10, being the strongest in the pantheon of it. The Inti would create and release a large sphere of solar light that looked like a miniature sun. And the attack upon impact on Trihexa burned and seriously damaged him, with the flames spreading through the beast's body. Inti is the Inca god of the sun and the leader of his mythology. His appearance is that of a blonde man with a yellow mask on his face and golden light armor. Inti is part of the world top 10. Acha would raise her hands and multiple gigantic arms of earth emerged from the ground, which she used to catch the Trihexa and try to make it descend to the ground so that it would not move. Pacha is a dragon with the title and right of being a deity, is the Inca goddess of life in the earth, and her case is similar to that of Tiamat. Her appearance is that of a very beautiful woman with long dark brown hair, black eyes, brown scales on her arms up to her shoulders and on her legs almost up to her waist. She also had scales on her chest covering her large bust. Pacha is also part of the world top 10. Yun Kimmel would raise his scythe and charge it with divine evil energy, thus giving multiple cuts to the Trihexa at high speed and hoping to blind its vitality or slow down its regeneration. Yun Kimmel is the Mayan god of death and one of the most important gods of their pantheon. Its appearance is that of a dog with a humanoid body. It had pieces of armor on its arms, legs and torso, in addition to wearing a helmet in the shape of an owl's head and the sharp bones of its spine protruding from its back. Yun Kimmel is also part of the world top 10. Zaymanek would create and launch a sphere of divine stellar energy, and said sphere would enter the mouth of one of the heads of the Trihexa, and within seconds. Said head exploded into pieces and its blood and flesh spilled out. Zaymanek is the Mayan god of the North Star and one of the most important gods in his pantheon. His appearance is that of a man of about 30 years old, whitish hair and silver clothes, with a large halo on his back in the shape of the North Star. Zaymanek is also part of the world top 10. Shenlong would give a ferocious roar, creating artificial clouds and launching huge hurricanes. From his mouth he would release a powerful electric breath, which combined with the hurricanes. And the now electric hurricanes began to cause serious damage without ceasing to the Trihexa. Shenlong is a dragon from Chinese mythology, where humans worship dragons and praise them as gods. And the Chinese gods themselves have a good relationship with dragons. Shenlong's body is that of a serpent dragon, and he has 2 horns on his head, and his scales were like a rainbow. Shenlong is part of the world top 10, being at the level of a celestial dragon without a doubt. But since he is a peaceful dragon and does not like to attract much attention, only the Chinese gods know of his true power, along with another. Yanlong would release a large freezing breath from his mouth, beginning to freeze the Trihixa's body, as well as creating and launching huge sharp pillars of ice at the beast's heads. Tianlong is another dragon from Chinese mythology and the equivalent of Shenlong. His body is that of a dragon snake, he has 2 horns on his head, and his scales were blue sky blue like the sky. Yanlong is also at the level of a heavenly dragon, being in the world top 10. Anubis would raise his scythe while enveloped in his divine evil aura and at an extremely divine speed. He would manage to cut off one of the Trihixa's heads from the base of the neck. Anubis is the Egyptian god of death and resurrection, presided over mummifications, was the guardian of the necropolis and guided souls to the afterlife. His appearance is that of a man with the head of a black jackal or an Egyptian dog, and he wore Egyptian clothing. Anubis is part of the world top 10, and his mythology is the second most powerful of all in terms of power, but at the same time it is one of the smallest, even though they are very forgotten today. Amaterasu would raise her divine katana Kusanagi, enveloping it in her divine aura and solar energy. Thus giving a fierce lash at high speed, releasing a wave of energy that cut the Trihixa's hand. Kusanagi is the Japanese sword that the god Susanoo found in the corpse of the evil dragon, Yamato no Urachi, and gave it to him. He gave his sister as an apology for destroying his rice fields. Kusanagi is one of the 3 imperial regalia of Japan. The Trihixa would roar and launch very powerful rays from its 7 heads. Seeing one of those go against her, Amaterasu would raise her hand with her aura full of it and summon a beautiful mirror with Japanese designs, which blocked and absorbed the Trihixa's attack, only to later return it to him, destroying one of her heads. Yata no Kagami is the celestial mirror created by the god Ishikorodome, which was used to lure Amaterasu out of her cave. Amaterasu sighed at the effort she made together with her Yata no Kagami. She better stop experimenting and get serious, they are risking their lives. It's good that her last relic on his neck heals his wounds and restores some of his power. The Asakani no Magatama is a necklace with a golden gem and was created by the goddess Aim no Yuzum, and this relic was also used together with the Yata no Kagami to lure Amaterasu out of her cave. Amaterasu is also part of the world top 10, being the strongest in her pantheon and the most acclaimed. Not to mention her mythology is the greatest of all. Izanagi strongly wielded his divine Naginata Amananya Hoko, charged a large amount of divine aura at its tip and then, from a direct attack on the Trihixa's body, a large amount of energy ran through the beast's body and hit him. He caused multiple wounds that healed within seconds. Izanagi is the god of creation of Japanese mythology and the father of Amaterasu, Susanoo and Tsukiyomi. He is also part of the world top 10. Ajuka Astaroth with his magical circles of his Kankara formula would make several calculations and equations. And with this, he would manage to deflect and redirect with effort one of the Trihixa's attacks towards it, and the beast received another fierce damage. Surzich's Grimoire at his side would emanate his chilling crimson demonic aura, and just a large sphere of his Hakai no Chikara was enough to disintegrate an entire head and neck of the Trihixa. This is the power of those 2 who are called the demons most powerful that are even in the world top 10, the 2 most fearsome super demons of all. It was then that someone would position himself in the central area of the necks of the Trihixa. It was the Hindu god of war and storms, Indra, who wore divine armor and in his hand carried his divine scepter, the Vajra. Indra would nail his Vajra into the central area of the beast's necks, and, shortly after, a huge and ferocious electric discharge it began to run through the Trihixa's body, which began to roar loudly. It is not known whether from pain or rage. It didn't matter. Shortly afterwards, an Egyptian sword was stabbed into the Trihixa's body, and said stabbed weapon began to emanate a fierce light and fire that ran through the Trihixa's entire body, increasing its agony. While whoever was in the air with his full aura was the Egyptian god of the sun and leader of his mythology, Ra. The god with a human body and the head of a falcon, where his solar disk was, he is also part of the world top 10 and is the natural enemy of the evil dragon Apophis. Tobio, being wrapped in his balance breaker, night heavenly / dog, flew with wings made of darkness while attacking the Trihixa with his cursed scythe. And next to him were the gods, Tsukiyomi, Izanami, Nyx, Eurpus and Tartarus. The 3 Greek gods who control the darkness attack the Trihixa incessantly and together they manipulated the darkness so that it slowly devours the beast, but it seemed that's impossible. Izanami would attack with large amounts of red-black flames from his hell, and his flames would hurt and even slow down the regeneration of the Trihixa. Tsukiyomi would charge moonlight into her hands along with darkness and water, creating a large sphere of her size from said elements, and then launch it and destroy a Trihexa head. Tsukiyomi and Izanami also entered the world top 10. Tobio, seeing that he wouldn't achieve much at his current level, decided it was time to turn up the intensity. We are animals that cut the domains of evil. In the endless abyss, we will deceive the midnight sun. The darkness around Tobio began to become denser and brighter as the young man was enveloped in a mass of brilliant darkness with slight reddish details. I am a cursed sword, we are evil beasts. To become a sharp sword of the eternal night and the distant darkness. When the mass of darkness dissipated from him, Tobio was seen in his dog humanoid form wrapped in darkness, being a little changed. His eyes shone in an intense red, in their lower part at the rear, there were 6 tails, and the large scythe in his hand began to emanate very dark red-black flames. The biblical god created Canis Lycaon using 2 individual sources. One of them is the king of Arcadia, Lycaon, who provoked the wrath of Zeus, causing the king to be turned into a humanoid wolf after being cursed, thus beginning the history of the werewolves. The other source was a Shinto divine sword, Aim no Ohabari, which was used to kill the Japanese god of fire, Kagetsuchi. As a result of the distortion caused by the union of the two, the sacred gear went from being a wolf to a dog, and Lycaon's curse also tainted the legendary sword, causing the blade to lose its divinity and become a sinister blade. This is how the Canis Lycaon was created. Tobio in the most powerful form of him that even allows him to kill gods, Perfectus Tenebri Lycaon et Fortis Densus Laelips, with the darkness around him, he created Jin next to him, who was now 3 meters tall. His body was made of darkness with red cursed marks on his body, and his eyes glowing red, and the dog was flying with wings. Made of darkness. Tobio would raise his scythe shrouded in his darkness and cursed red-black flames, thus launching a fierce lash of energy that managed to cut off the Trihexa's hand. While the gods at his side could almost not believe the power that the young/dog had, who was like a god of the highest rank and power. Although Izanami laughed at the irony when she saw it, since she is aware that the sword Aim no Ohabari was used by Elohim to create that Longinus, but if she is surprised by what he is capable of, how crazy was that man? God to create objects like that. Issei, the CANCELADA, was being accompanied by Odin, Zeus, Thor, Vidar, Athena and Apollo. The 7 of them fired their combined attacks to deal damage to the Trihexa, and the CANCELADA sometimes approached and launched fierce red flames. Green ones that seemed to affect the Trihexa, since the flames took too long to go out and slowed down the regeneration of the beast. Greg knew what that was and thought that it was better to use it at once, his partner would need it in its entirety, so he began to search the depths of the boosted gear to unlock his last special and original power, the first of all his abilities and at the same time the most fearsome. Valerie, the hacker Yuiku, launched her magical attacks against the Trihexa with her wyverns at her side, while she absorbed a large amount of magical energy in the environment from the fight that was taking place. Supporting her were Cao, Mahabali, Ares, Tur, Artemis and Freya. Everyone attacking Trihexa with the best they had. Valerie, Cao and Mahabali were the strongest on that side, since all 3 are from the world top 10 in their respective ways, with Mahabali being stronger, perhaps at the level of Indra. Valerie almost couldn't believe what they were facing, this beast is beyond ridiculous with its resistance and regeneration. Seeing how the Trihexa managed to break free from Midgard's arm around its body with just brute force, it wasn't that much of a surprise, but if the sleeping dragon was able to hold him for a while and leave him vulnerable with his poison. Valerie began to debate if he should use his too, it's not as lethal as Albion's, but it could still be of some use and. Ost. May familiar presence was going against her at high speed, it was. Razavam, wearing the balance breaker of Apophis's power, quickly managed to grab her daughter by her neck and carry her away at high speed. I will finish her first at least. When Valerie felt them release her from her neck, she noticed that she and her father were at an even higher point in the air and the battle against the Trihexa was happening below them. Well, my daughter. Razavam would wrap himself in the dark light aura of her, with Kitswaki thorn in hand. Let's get this over with. You and me. And if someone comes to help you, let them try. But until then. It's you and me. TCH. Valerie would click his tongue, but sigh, what's wrong Razavam? Are you desperate because of the sudden help that came? I admit that I am certainly surprised. Razavam would sigh. He didn't expect every faction in the world to band together just for this, to save themselves. I'm serious. Heh. Well, your mistake was trusting yourself and believing that the gods would wait for you to attack them, instead of doing the opposite. Valerie would laugh amused. Surely you shouldn't have attracted us to you, now things got complicated for you. Say what you want. No matter how hard they try, they will not be able to defeat the Trihexa. Razavam would look for a moment at the battle that was taking place below them. Without a doubt. A fearsome being. His power seems to have no limits, just like that regeneration. I now understand why Elohim suffered too much in sealing it. Heh. It's good that you take all possible precautions, there are no faults. The talk is over. Valerie would summon several magic circles and wyverns around her, thus firing multiple bursts of demon light with blue rays against her father. Razavum would receive the attack squarely, and the explosion created a screen of smoke around her. Valerie, upon seeing that, thought that she better hurry up and descend quickly so that perhaps someone could help her, since she knows that she cannot win. To her father with her current power. The girl tried to descend at high speed, but suddenly, a large dome made of darkness forms in the air and encloses both Lucifers in what would be like a round prison in the air. Valerie attacked the dome of darkness with his demon light, but nothing. He couldn't dispel it or anything, he was very resistant and seemed to consume his demon light every time he attacked. Are you leaving so soon? The girl would see how Razavum approached her slowly and looking intact after the previous thing. Hahaha, what's wrong, my daughter? Do you recognize that I am stronger than you and that is why you run away for help? DCH. Valerie clicked her tongue irritably. One way or another, he has to fight. I hope someone comes soon or. Razavum without hesitation began to launch multiple dark light spheres. Valerie dodges them by taking flight at an extremely divine speed. The Hakuryuaku began to launch her own bursts of demon light and these hit her enemy, but the dark Lucifer accumulated a large amount of darkness and he threw it. The great mass of darkness consumed demon light's attacks and continued its path against its prey. Valerie, seeing that, raised his wings from his armor and divide, 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 divide. He began to divide the power of that attack and he did. His power was absorbed, but something was wrong. The great mass of darkness did not lose size at all. But what? Could it be that since it is pure darkness? It cannot be divided. Albion noticed the characteristic almost late and the girl cursed that. Out of inertia, Valerie launched a powerful attack of pure light, hoping to be able to counteract the mass of darkness, but said mass of darkness consumed his light attack. He had no time to react. The great mass of darkness had hit Valerie squarely. The explosion I think was huge and the Hakuryuaku was sent flying backwards. Wounded and with her armor damaged, but alive. DTCH. Shit. Valerie compassed himself as best he could in the air as he weighed his options and quickly activated the power of the boosted gear in his left gauntlet again. He had to take advantage of it and Razavum began to attack her with blasts of dark light without stopping. Valerie raised his hands and a large transparent bluish circle formed in front of him. Said circle received demon light's attacks and seemed to absorb them. Razavum noticed it after 1 minute and stopped his attack, but reflect the command indicating one of Albion's original abilities was heard and from the transparent bluish circle in front of Valerie, a great torrent made of that absorbed dark light shot out and it was returned against his enemy. Razavum was surprised at this, but quickly raised a great mass of darkness that blocked the reflected attack. And with effort he absorbed it, but penetrate yourself. Discovered Valerie would appear at high speed in front of his father and would give him a strong blow in the face, loaded with demon light and blue rays. And to top it off, full dividing, Dark Lucifer felt his power reduce as his hull was destroyed and he was sent flying backwards. Until he could pull himself together in the air as he could. Ha. Very well done, my daughter. But the Saint Grail would appear in Razavum's hands and the silver aura of the chalice enveloped the Dark Lucifer who rebuilt his helmet and his aura revived again. Not enough. With this, Razavum began to generate more and more darkness like fog around the place, making the place darker and with little vision. Valerie channeled his light into his eyes to be able to see better, but instantly, an attack hit him squarely and bought. Valerie complained of pain and was stunned to see his armor in front melted and dissolved because of a black liquid. Oh no. Has suffered the punishment of your life. Razavum with the darkness in the surroundings created tentacles of darkness that trapped the limbs of her daughter, immobilizing her. And now. The Dark Lucifer snapped his fingers and spears made of deadly black water were created around him. Within seconds, these spears went at high speed against Valerie, digging into his legs and arms. Valerie had to bite her tongue to keep from screaming, she wasn't going to give her that pleasure, but the explosion created on her because of those black water spears on her severely damaged her and dissolved even more of her armor. Blood was coming from the side of his face and from his arms and legs. Unfortunately. Your luck has run out, my daughter. The girl did not pay attention to Razavum and began to emanate the pure light from her, hoping to be able to break free from her bonds, but nothing. Fight all you want, but it won't work. The darkness is destined to overshadow and devour the light and it cannot overshadow the darkness. So. You will be devoured by this one. Raising his hand, Dark Lucifer began to create a large sphere of dark light above him, and said sphere was the size of him and very charged with power. Valerie knew that if that gives him. It's more than dead, but. Eclipsing Tsukir launched without hesitation his dark light attack that simulated being a miniature eclipse and was dark bright, with black and white glowing. Even so. Valerie clenched his teeth in fists and with his eyes glowing silver blue. His divine dividing wings spread out and emanated a large amount of bluish demon light aura and then. Compression divider. The most powerful and dangerous ability of the hacker Yuku was present. With the environment feeling somewhat broken, the great sphere of light dark was trapped by the waves of the technique. And within seconds it began to compress until it became smaller and smaller. Only to disappear shortly after without leaving any particles. But. Nice try, but. With his arms raised, Razavem gathered an immense amount of darkness in the place and it approached the defenseless hacker Yuku. You lost. But that and without more. All the great darkness gathered together would envelop Valerie until she was inside something almost similar to a cocoon made of darkness. Inside the cocoon. Valerie tried to fight and free himself from that capture, but. Nothing was of any use. His pure light and his divide were useless and he no longer has so much energy left to use compression again. Divider. And to top it all off, the darkness around her began to envelop her body and she could hardly feel it. The darkness wanted to consume her until it left no trace of its existence. Valerie tried to stay awake, not to close her eyes and to emanate her pure light, but. It continued to be devoured. There was no longer light. Only darkness. And with that, the Lucifer's great-granddaughter began to sink into the darkness. Even opening his eyes, he couldn't see anything. Nothing. There was nothing but infinite darkness wherever he looked. Valery Lucifer felt as if he were floating in nothingness, where everything was only dark. Nothing bright was present. And for some reason. Now. He didn't feel like continuing. In truth, it would be useless to try to confront his father with that power he has. Before I could have defeated and killed him without a problem, but. Now that is not the case. Suddenly. Something would come to her mind. Stop. A memory. One that she has kept in the depths of her mind, one that brought her pain in those days. Her mother standing in front of Razavem to prevent him from continuing to hit her and let him not over-demand her, only for her to receive a slap in the face and for the devil to withdraw without interest. Daughter. It's simple, but. It's better than nothing. Another memory. Her mother always fed her with simple pasta and nothing else, but. She did it with a lot of love. That made her feel happy in that hell in which she was born and lived her first years. So you're Lucifer's daughter, huh? The day they escaped and she met Azazel. She remembers that she made a feint of will not to fall asleep in his arms while he carried them both. And a few hours after Azazel returned his mother to his native home, Valerie was finally able to fall asleep afterward. Hello. Don't be so expressionless. And by the way, I'm Lavinia. The day that her older sister figure spoke to her about her and brought her out of the trance of her guilt to a certain extent. And at the same time she met Tobio, Natsu and Kaki. I fear that nothing will ever be the same again. I don't think I'll be able to approach any girl normally for a while. I love you. And I always will. From. Now. And. For. Always. The memories of when he took Issei with her, when he told her about her problems, when he died and. He confessed to her. First, there's no way I'm going to let my kids not see the world, this only motivates one more the memory of recently. When she broke the news of her pregnancy and I unconsciously caressed her belly even in that world of darkness. What a misfortune. She won't even be able to bring that child inside her into the world. What a great failure of a mother she is. It's no use trying anything anymore. Maybe she never really deserved it. Maybe truly your destiny is only to suffer and be alone in the darkness. And may those who are close to you suffer even more. Since she took Issei, she always knew that there would be consequences for it. And when she began her relationship with him and learned about the status of his previous loves, she understood one thing. She got into other people's happiness. As much as she wanted to help him, she took away the person they loved most from those who had him before her. It seems like she really didn't deserve it. She better disappears into the darkness and into the void. No one will regret her departure. You look pathetic accepting that without further ado. That voice. She knew it. It can't be. When she opened her eyes and saw more clearly. Hello Valerie. Valina. Valerie couldn't believe it. The former strongest hacker Yuku woman before her suddenly appeared. How? We don't know. To that other voice. The former strongest male hacker Yuku appeared next to the black-haired girl. We just felt that. We should come. And see you one last time. Lux. Valerie didn't know what to think when he saw them both. I miss them without a doubt. Why are you complaining, Virginia-chan? Asked Helena. Sniff. Because I failed miserably. Sobbing, Valerie would look at nothing. The infinite darkness. I feel that. I don't deserve the happiness I have now. That I got it in exchange for making those who had that happiness and followed it with suspicion suffer. Valerie. Lux would catch the girl's attention. Why so much self-hatred? Why can't you see beyond your pain? Because I feel that I do not deserve anything of what I have obtained. My mother. My brothers in everything except blood. My friends. The man I fell in love with. My son. Valerie would shed tears with his empty eyes, as if lifeless. Affection and love. I don't deserve them. They all deserve it, Valerie. Don't you love them? The girl bit her lip a little at what Helena said. No. You don't feel like you don't deserve them, you just want to forget the days when you weren't strong enough to protect the ones you care about. What you fear is to remain weak so as not to be able to protect what matters to you, and that is why before you wanted only pure power above the happiness you received. And what if it is like that even now? I know I'm not strong for it, I only became strong and wanted the power to be able to end the source of my misfortune and deep down, she was my reason and motivation for it. Valerie, crying, remembered the days when her mother protected her of the daily attacks, and then it was she who received the punishments so that they would not hurt her. All because she could not convert and be like her father wanted her to be. Now that she thinks about it, if it had not been by his mother, he would surely have ended up like the other descendants of the original mass, or even become what Razavam wanted. It was his mother who marked the path of his life. But at the same time it is something that she doesn't want to remember very often, because it hurts her. It hurts her to remember that I failed her. That's why. That's why when she escaped from there and Azazel took her in, and he erased her mother's memory. Your request so that you have a new life. A better one without traumas. I failed her. I couldn't protect her even though she didn't mind suffering. That I was the best that the world gave her, despite the aggression she suffered. In truth, I feel that I don't deserve to have her. In my memory, nor back in my life. Do you think so? Lux would speak up. It is difficult to forget something or someone that means so much to you. I see that you are afraid to get close to others and to be happy, because you fear that the same thing will happen as before. You have the pride and talent of Lucifer, the kindness and Luzbel's compassion, and the determination that exists in the human heart. You have the best of the three races and you cannot deny that. You just need to accept that. Accept that you failed in the past, but that can change. Or rather, it is already changing. The girl looked confused at those words. Aren't you worried about those who fight at your side? Your adoptive family, the governor and his children, who welcomed you and cared for you, those who no matter what happens, will continue to love you. Your rival who at the same time is your loved one and who knew how to overcome his traumas and move forward, thanks to you. Valerie didn't say anything. That was. Hasn't the current CANCELADA awakened in you that true desire for protection so characteristic of humans? Helena would speak again. It is a fact that you seriously love that boy who has given you a lot without you asking him. Because he reminded you of your mother, because you know that only she could make you truly smile. You felt it and you feared him like that because you didn't want to be tied to him or anyone. Think about it for a second. Would your mother have wanted that for you, that you closed your heart and not opened yourself to what you feel? Valerie thought about the question for several seconds and knowing his mother. No. She would have wanted me to be happy. Just like I wanted it with her. I'm not totally sure of my path. But I am sure of something. I want to be with my loved one, even if I don't deserve it. Just as I want to fight to forge my path to see the light, even though my entire life has been in the dark. Walking towards the light. Different from him. Helena would laugh at the irony. Your loved one has carried the darkness of his trauma and sunk into madness once, but you brought him out of said madness and made him go to the light. You seek the light while you walk through the darkness. The red walks through the dusk, the white through the dawn. So different, but so similar. Yes, this generation is interesting. You and your loved one are very different, but similar. Lux would speak again. Your beloved seeks a new power, one that is not that of ruin, and that is superior and better than this. You seek it, not to be a tyrant, but to change it. A power that transcends everything seen until now. Therefore, we believe that you can achieve it. The former strongest male hacker Yuiku raised her hand, and from it emanated a great flash of whitish light that illuminated the part where they were. May light and darkness not abandon living beings, and may they know how to understand both. Helena would smile sideways. You, the current two celestial dragons, carry a lot, but I know you can do it. Valerie. That voice. Albion, how good. I have tried to communicate, but I couldn't find your consciousness in that darkness and Valerie. Albion. Do you hear me? That other sudden voice. Office. Sing this song with us. A chant from the dragon god. How ironic. Albion didn't know whether to laugh or admire the great offer. He could feel something big wanting to come out and, Hacker Yuiku of the morning star and show the world the way to a new dawn. And show them the true union, coexistence and harmony of light and darkness. And create a new possibility. What followed next was something that Valery Lucifer would not forget for the rest of his life. All the past Hakuryukas appeared in front of her, and these, along with Lux and Helena, dissipated into bright dark grayish particles. Valerie could feel immense loneliness, but she also harbored the hope of a feeling that every being covets, just like love. Forgiveness. With some hesitation, Valerie approached the grayish particles with his hand, and then these particles began to gather together until they formed a small dark glossy grayish sphere. And said sphere would be positioned in Valerie's hand, who could feel a part of her healing. Albion, who was a witness of that, was speechless before that scene and had the same feeling within himself. The vanishing dragon understood something very important, God, and the Mssiah died for a special purpose, and in front of him there was that answer. The human spirit was something worthwhile in the world, and in front of that ancient dragon the first miracle of said spirits occurred. Valerie carried the dark bright greyish sphere to his chest and closed his eyes. Where when he opened them, the decision was seen and the same dark bright greyish glow in them, at the same time that a red-black flash appeared. Illuminated in her belly. It was time. The angel who became a demon, who is the star of tomorrow and transcended into a new being that dwells within me, claims the throne of dawn. Valerie began a very unique chant. Silver white celestial dragon that dwells within me, arise from me supremacy. Albion joined the chant. The jet black god of infinity Office also joined the chant. The glorious god of dreams and the unfathomable father of demons, who is the son of God. We must transcend the limits to accept the oath and become an existence never before seen or planned. Lilith also joined the chant. And they will kneel before our bright and glorious existence. At those words, the entire world of infinite darkness around him disappeared. And only a space of dark bright grayish color with bluish details remained. And the flash of that same color began to spread each time further. But what? Razavim did not believe what he saw. From the cocoon of darkness where his daughter was sunk, multiple dark bright flashes began to emerge. And the bluish flash that was created was what ended up destroying that cocoon made of darkness, and those sounds. As if they were glitches. They came from the divine dividing, and the dark bright grayish blue flash began to take physical form at the same time that the image of the Hakuryuku was seen little by little. Razavim could not seriously believe what she saw. Let her daughter at death's door. Get up. The flash around Valerie began to die and move away from his body. The Hakuryuku's new armor could now be seen. This one was silver grayish with jet black designs and details, and gold turquoise details on the chest, arms and legs surrounding all the blue turquoise gems. The wings of the armor were the same, only a denser and darker shiny turquoise blue. However, the most important detail was that there was another pair of wings on the girl's back. These wings were as big as his body, their shape was like that of demon bats, but with angel feathers. And said wing feathers were a dark glossy grayish color. The image of her was like seeing an angel and a demon at the same time, as a single being. Something never seen before. And that said being that looked more like an angel, did not have any halo on its head. The eyes of her helmet shone with an intense bluish flash as a sign that she was ready. The Hakuryuku raised her right arm and showed the gems of the gauntlet. In them, 3 new symbols were seen. First the Ouroboros symbol of infinity, then that of the true dream. And finally, the symbol that represents harmony and coexistence, that of a new possibility. The symbol of dawn with the demonic and angelic designs in one. Dragon Luzbel Lucifer Drive. The divine dividing said the name of the new form created by the power of the Hakuryuku and the inheritance from it, added to the blessing of the 2 gods dragons. Razavim still couldn't believe what his eyes were seeing. It was impossible. His daughter was nothing short of being consumed by the darkness, to be nothing more than nothing when she perished, only to wake up almost a couple of minutes later with a new set of armor. A pair of unique wings that seemed to be the embodiment of light and darkness, and an aura that emanated bright dark divinity. Light dark. How was it possible? Valerie, upon seeing himself again in reality, felt a new sensation of power in her body. This was incredible. He had never felt like this before, not even with his previous forms. This form exuded a harmonious power and balance, like good and evil become one. None surpassing the other, only coexisting, like a cycle that will always be present, and it is best that it be that way. Without the opposite side of a force, whether good or evil, there is no balance. And seeing the large pair of wings on his back, he felt that they gave the same feeling of power to him. Valerie Albion's voice brought the girl out of her thoughts to pay attention. We did it. No, rather. We transcended into something much more unique. Harmony and chaos. Light and darkness. Valerie would look at his hands. Yes. And it's amazing. After saying that, the girl would set her gaze on her father, and The hacker Yuiku rushed against Dark Lucifer, who was expectant at the appearance that his daughter now had. Without giving him time to get closer, Razavim quickly closed the distance between them both. Soon, the silhouettes of Albion and Apophis overlapped over both contenders, father and daughter launched a blow against the other. After meeting their fists, the impact was enough to make them both separate from each other, the same distance they had traveled. Hahaha. Well, let's see if you can last a little longer. Fun and pride was in Razavim's tone. I hope so, since some fun would be good for me before I go to achieve my goal. You won't. Valerie raised his right fist, emanating a joint dark and bright aura. Even if you also want to do good for the world, because you've had enough of its imperfections and injustices. The way you want to change it is not the right thing to do. You have to fight every day and make an effort to be able to change it, no matter how difficult it may be. Instead of seeking rebirth through destruction. Don't talk nonsense, incredulous and stupid girl. Razavim raised his voice in anger and irritation. This world and its inhabitants are only selfish, no matter how much one wants to do good for everyone, or that they can understand each other. In the end. They will only think of themselves before the rest, and for that reason. I'm going to prove that my belief is not wrong. Then let's see which ideal is the true and correct one for the world, exclaimed Valerie. Both father and daughter raised their dark bright auras as the dome of darkness around them changed. It was no longer pure darkness. It was now light dark. Grayish dark bright. Both father and daughter disappeared at high speed and then reappeared after colliding their fists. The force was such that the place and the air shook fiercely. That speed and strength were not common. Razavim, he was surprised to see that Valerie managed to keep up with him, but immediately, both of them engaged in a fight of rapid blows with an overwhelming force so intense that the air seemed to tremble as both father and daughter flew at high speed through that space and collided from time to time. A black comet with a dark bright grayish aura and another bluish one with the same aura fought a duel in that place, leaving a trail of their power. When Razavim saw that he was at an appropriate distance, he would make some movements with his fingers as he created and launched several blasts of darkness combined with his black water. But Valerie did not let himself be intimidated by that and, quickly, with his hands he would create and would launch several bursts of light combined with blue turquoise rays. And as if it were destiny, each burst of both impacted each other, counteracting each other. Even so, that did not stop either of them from continuing. Razavim with his light would create and launch a huge demon-like creature made of said light, but, to his surprise, Valerie counterattacked with a great mass of darkness that took the form of a dragon. Both creatures of opposite energies roared fiercely, and after colliding, they counteracted each other, neither surpassing the other. Razavim did not believe what he saw and did not find logic in it. How is it possible that his daughter can now use the darkness? Obviously, he didn't have time to continue thinking. He had to continue. Now Valerie attacked first, his own harmonious and chaotic dark light shining like never before. And a large mass of said dark light took on a humanoid shape with a large pair of wings on his back, similar to Valerie's and a size about 3 meters high. Razavim created a large mass of dark light and it took on a humanoid shape with a large pair of demon wings on its back and of a similar size to the enemy entity. And then both enemy entities of light dark with different essences went against each other and after colliding, they created a powerful dark bright explosion that emanated throughout the place. Even with that and when the bright dark explosion faded away, both opponents, father and daughter, went against each other with their swords in hand. Kitsuekithorn was enveloped in the dark light of Dark Lucifer along with the black water on the blade. The same thing happened with the hacker Yuiku's dividing sword. Said sword was now dark grayish shiny with golden turquoise details and it was wrapped in the girl's dark light along with its turquoise rays on the leaf. The clash of their weapons against each other was imminent and the energies and elements of both swords respectively seemed to cancel each other out but not overcome the other. Even so, both father and daughter immediately used more power. The exchange of weapons became a fierce battle between both Lucifers who gave no truce at any time. Both used precise and even terrifying movements with unreal speed and strength in their clash of swords. The Kitsuekithorn blade wrapped with dark light and black water fiercely struck the sword dividing blade wrapped in its own dark light with turquoise rays and it was easily resisting the blows that were being dealt to it. Soon, both opponents, father and daughter, began to attack each other with greater force and the sparks that the swords gave off when they collided simply began to be noticed. Razavim gritted his teeth and at the same time could not believe the titanic resistance and power that his daughter was displaying. For his part, Valerie could not help but recognize his father as an iron and daring opponent. He could see that he has only seen imperfections, injustices and misfortunes in this world. And that was what drove his father to want a more just and pure world where no one has to suffer anymore. But to do so, he had to commit many atrocities to prove his point and that. Valerie now wanted to understand it but he couldn't. It was clear to the naked eye that her father was clouded by his belief and all the bad things he has seen. And to prove the opposite of this, Valerie was determined to demonstrate her own belief. From before. She never fought for herself, but for everyone. For her mother, who was the light in the darkness in which she was born and guided her, and she became what she is now. For her adoptive family who gave her the opportunity to smile again. And for Issei, her beloved, who has reminded her more than once of what she tried to hide or forget and has given her even more happiness. Walking through the darkness to find the light. All those feelings began to accumulate in Valerie's heart, making her body burn completely. It wasn't irrational or calm anger, but the desire to reciprocate everyone's efforts and feelings. And the determination to defeat her destiny and prove what she believes. All those emotions burned and shone very strongly. And then. EDLL overdrive. But that new and unexpected command of the divine dividing, as both opponents separated from each other after clashing their swords. The four wings of the Hakuryuku of the morning star began to shine and flash in turquoise. The rays contained in Valerie's spirit manifested in that way. And at the same time, scarlet red designs and details began to appear on the armor as jade jewels became present on the light wings of the armor. This new and final form not only represented and was the embodiment and coexisting harmony of light and darkness, but also represented and reflected that Valerie was the heavenly love and partner of the current scarlet Securite. At that, Valerie felt a pulse that came from his chest. His soul. One that was answered by the Kitsuakithorn sword, to the surprise of both opponents, father and daughter. And even more so because Kitsuakithorn began to shine, directing its shine at Valerie. A glow of acceptance. That are you choosing this unbeliever over me, a horrible weapon that only represents evil. Razavim did not believe it. This he could not. And simply feeling how the sword burned his hand, as if it rejected him. It was the final proof of it. To me, Kitsuakithorn. Valerie would raise his hand. If you accept me. I will gladly accept you. The girl's scream and call was enough for the sword to shine brighter and go towards its new bearer after burning Razavim's hand. The sword remained floating in front of Valerie and she would take the weapon from the hilt, where it to do it. He felt a great pulse coming from his being and the weapon as a large amount of information went into his head. This was. How ironic. And to think that Lucifer could seal something like that in addition to lying about the origin of this sword. So. He would raise his new weapon and. Light and darkness. Sacred and demonic. Black and white. Harmony and chaos. Show up and join in hearing my call in power. And become the power and balance of the world that protects us and guides us into the future. After that chant. A spiral of dark bright grayish light dark along with scarlet and gold details was present on the sword. And after said spiral dissipated, the sword was seen now changed. And not this. It can. Be. Razavim could not believe the change that his old weapon had undergone. The sword was made of a blade that was neither so thick nor so thin, of a grayish color dark shiny, with the edge of the left side of the blade being scarlet and the right golden. In addition to scarlet and golden details on the hilt, along with the symbol of dawn with the demonic and angelic designs in one, reflecting its harmony and coexistence. Impossible. Razavim, look very carefully. This is the power and true will of Lucifer. No, rather. From Luzbel Lucifer. Valerie would raise his new sword to show it off even better. This is Luzbel's celestial sword that became a diabolical sword after he fell and became Lucifer. And after transcending, it became something unique just like his weapon. The first irregularity in the world never mentioned before, the transcendent sword of the dark light of chaos and harmony. Kinhikoikia. Valerie would take a guard pose with his sword in hand, and. Here I come, father. Razavim was almost shocked to hear his daughter call him father with complete honesty, sincerity and determination. Out of nowhere, Valerie would appear in front of him and deliver a powerful blow with his sword. Razavim received the attack squarely after his dark light shield was dispelled without problems, and the dark Lucifer was sent flying, with a huge crack in his armor, from which little blood and smoke began to come out, proof that sword seriously burned him. Father, we are both users of light and darkness, as well as light-dark, but. Ours are totally different in essence. Valerie would begin to speak while Razavim tried to recover from the damage received. Yours does not show harmony or coexistence, since you are using a darkness that is not yours. You are walking the path of light, but you do not understand or accept your own darkness. The darkness you have now is false, and that does not compare to the true darkness of chaos. Razavim didn't know whether to feel insulted or frustrated by what he heard, but. Why? Why does a part of him feel that everything his daughter has told him is true, just as what she does is wrong, that it is not the right thing to do? If it is not, then what is it? Valerie would strike a pose, wielding Kinhikoikia with his two hands from the hilt and emanating the harmonious and chaotic dark light from it, along with a silver grayish scarlet jet aura and blue turquoise rays. It was the moment. But the push of her wings, the Hakuryuku charged at an unreal speed towards the dark Lucifer. The four lightning wings, the new designs on the armor and the new sword, gave him an overwhelming appearance. The tip of Kanhiakoakia was approaching dangerously close to Razavam's chest, who instinctively raised his aura in determination, with his artificial sacred gear responding at your will, creating a defensive circle wrapped in the dark light of him. The tip of the sword collided with the defensive circle, and both seemed to struggle to overcome the other, with neither wanting to give in, but full DDLL. That command was the announcement that marked the end of this battle. The tip of Kanhiakoakia managed to sink little by little into the defensive circle with dark light, and cracks appeared in it. And within seconds, the defensive circle would break, and the tip of the sword was nowhere near sticking into the dark Lucifer's chest. Razavam watched as the tip of the sword approached slowly, as if adrenaline gave him the speed to try to do something, but he didn't. With just that, Razavam began to see his life flash before his eyes, typical of those who are going to die. His childhood life before and at the end of the biblical war, his life in the underworld led by his father until the beginning of the Civil War, also when he kidnapped Elizabeth and forced her to have Valerie. And in the end, how a few moments ago, his own daughter told him father with total honesty, recognizing and accepting it as one, despite everything he did. When he realized it, Razavam saw and felt how his chest was pierced by the Kanhiakoakia sword. Soon, his armor would dissipate. And Valerie could see his father's expression, which was calm and peace, but at the same time repentance. "Thank you for showing it to me, daughter." After those words, Razavam's body would begin to shine. And from his feet up he would begin to disappear into shiny particles. "I'm sorry. And put an end to the madness that it causes. You, the legitimate successor of the will of Lucifer. Sniff. I'll do it." Holding back the sob as best he could, Valerie would see how his father's body would completely disappear into shiny particles. "Rest in peace, father." Valerie would shrug her shoulders after her victory and farewell, as the large dome made of dark light that held her dissipated within seconds. The girl would then fix something else in front of her. The chalice of the Saint Grail and a necklace. The same sacred gear necklace where Apophis was sealed, so Valerie quickly took both objects in his hands and with a strong squeeze, broke the sacred gear necklace. And a very dark black orb would appear in front of her, the soul of Apophis. "Thank you." A voice. Was heard from that soul. "It must be the Eclipse dragon. And I hope that one day we can fight properly when he revives. I will consider it when the time comes." That was the only answer Valerie gave him. Accepting this, Apophis's soul would rise and wander into the distance, going wherever it goes. Maybe to the hell of her origin. It doesn't matter. Valerie would sigh at his victory and look at the Saint Grail in his hands. They could use it to recover the lives that were lost in this battle, once they managed to win and Suddenly, Valerie would notice and feel something beneath her, where the battle against the Trahexa was still raging. From the ground, a large glowing scarlet jet pillar would rise, going to the highest point in the sky of the underworld and turning it reddish black. What does that mean? What happened while she was busy with her father? Well, one thing was certain. The battle against Trahexa was in the final and definitive stretch. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.